I'm Angela Moore, and I'm the program coordinator for the SFLR program here at Prairie View A&M University. And we are super thrilled, excited, and delighted to be partnering with 100 Ranchers. And the president of 100 Ranchers is Miss Kimberly Ratcliffe, who will be bringing us greetings and welcome at this time.
Thank you, Angela Moore. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate the partnership Prairie View has given the 100 Ranchers an opportunity to present this program to you guys, the SFLR program. It's been a pleasure. We've been working on this program for over a year. This is our second opportunity to do this outreach in this area. We originally were in Freestone County, and now we're in Anderson County. This is definitely part of the 100 Ranchers mission, is to reach out to these socially disadvantaged producers in any aspect of production agriculture as possible. So I'm hoping you guys have an opportunity to listen to some great speakers today, to get some information, and hopefully before you guys do get off the call, there are some intake forms that will email to you. And if you did not get that email, you can reach out to myself or Angela Moore and get the intake forms, because that will definitely assist you in any type of assistance you need to get your forestry plan together, or even get into these NRCS and some of the other programs that you'll be hearing today. So I look forward to listening to these speakers today, and I hope you guys do too. And again, if you have any questions afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Angela Moore. So thank you to Prairie View again, thank you to Dr. Bunch, and thank you to the other CBOs that also are represented here that have been greatly supportive of this initiative, and I look forward to it for hopefully years to come. So thank you, Angela. And I guess it's Dr. Bunch. The table's yours now. You're on mute, Dr. Bunch.
I'm on mute.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Ratcliffe. Of course, Ms. Moore, thank you as well for the wonderful introduction too. Can you all hear me okay? Actually, been in transition, so hopefully everything is fine at the current. But let me, of course, I just welcome, of course, my name is Clarence Bunch. I'm the actual Ag and Natural Resources Program Leader here at Prairie View A&M University College of Agriculture and Corporate Extension Program. And I really want to, really kind of provide you with a brief overview in relationship to the program itself, to kind of let you know about how the program actually launched, just in regards to some of the partners and some of the site plans that we had here within the program. So I just wanted to kind of do that and cover that, and then get out of the way so you guys can get the real good meat and potatoes from the others as well. So let me share. I think if I can share, Ms. Moore, do I have sharing privileges? Can I share, Ms. Moore? Am I allowed to share? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ms. Moore?
Yes. You do, and am
I able to share?
Let me double check. Yes, you can begin sharing, Dr. Bunch.
Okay. All right, let's see. Can you all see that?
Yes.
All right, let me share really pretty much a little overview of the particular program itself. And one of the things I want to do is basically kind of cover some things about how things was conceptualized. Of course, the program itself, the SFLR program, which is the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Program, actually, this is a program that actually was located, that stretches across from Virginia through Georgia itself. It's really a part of what they consider to be the Black Belt within the South. And the Black Belt, of course, it incorporates a lot of African American that actually that live in that particular area. Basically, back in 2010, of course, in 2010, within the Black Belt, they included that the Black Belt had consisted of about 10 states. 10 states, of course, those states such as Alabama, Arkansas, of course, Louisiana, Mississippi, on across to South Carolina, and up to Virginia. These were the states that actually comprised of the Black Belt in the beginning. And then, of course, the USDA Economic Research Service in 2016, they actually did a report. And in their report, they actually had concluded that within the Black Belt area, that there was about 472 counties that was considered to be persistently poor. And that, of course, spanned itself from Virginia, as well as it also includes some of the east part of Texas. So when they discovered that, it kind of raised for them a little bit of a concern in relationship to how this has been happening, how it has occurred. And so as a result, that they realized that after looking at it, they realized that some of the Black family landholding had actually declined over the past century. And they said there was a part of the fact that because of lack of access to capital and credit, as well as some other issues that was happening illegally, by taking also withholding illegal information from landowners. And so that actually led to, of course, foreclosures and other things that forced a voluntary sale of some of the land in the southeastern United States. But research that was done, of course, done by the Forest Service, research that was done, they found out that Heirs property really was the major contributor to that land loss itself within the Black Belt area. Of course, they use the term dead capital, which means that that you have land that you don't utilize, so it's not being utilized. Therefore, it's money that you're actually leaving that you're basically not able to utilize because perhaps you just don't understand how you can use it. But it was one of the primary contributors for the land loss that had occurred. They also had found out that that limited engagement in forest management was also a result of a reduce and return from the land, and the land itself decreased in value, land value itself. So what happened was that when they was gleaming and looking at this information, they found out that really there was about 1.6 million acres of the land was really held in Heirs property. Of course, that's a lot of acres held in a status state of a situation, but they found out there's about 1.6 million acres that was considered to be an Heirs property. So what happened then, that as a result of that, in 2012, the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Program was actually launched. It was launched actually by the U.S. Endowment for Forestry and Communities in partnership with the USDA, Department of Agriculture, and Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the Forest Service. So together, in combination and support with the U.S. Endowment, they felt a need to try to figure out a way to address this particular issue. And since then, that when they had emerged, they actually emerged and birthed, of course, and create other network sites. And in the beginning, of course, they expanded through Alabama, the other states as a part of the Black Belt South area with Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and of course, Virginia. And what happened then in 2020, the American Forest Foundation, of course, awarded Prairie View A&M, the College of Human Resources Corporate Extension Program, a 2-year grant to implement the SFLR program, the Sustainable Forestry and African American Land Retention Program, here in Texas. So Texas then became one of the sites as a part of the Black Belt Initiative focus in reference to the network to try to address this issue dealing with that of forest as well as that of Heirs property here in the state of Texas. And so as a result, of course, Texas joined, they joined 7 other sites, of course, which is a part of the organization out of Virginia. Of course, I have listed here a number of these particular sites and names. And from the states, of course, Alabama Limited Resources, of course, Mississippi, Winston County Self-Help Cooperative. But inside the network, there are, we also have Arkansas. Arkansas, of course, is a university. So in Texas, which is inclusive of Prairie View. So both Arkansas and Texas are the only 2 that has universities are a part of it. And these 2 universities are 1890 institutions. And of course, for all of us who understand 1890 institutions, really a part of their mission is to engage and to help minority landowners, particularly African-American landowners, to engage in reference to agriculture elements. But there's only 2 that's a part of this particular network itself. So what we had decided after, I think, as Ms. Ratcliffe was explaining, that we've been engaging in this now for a little bit of a while. But as a part of the site plan, we actually came together in the beginning to about 6 months to do some planning. And in the planning, we actually were looking at when we're going to launch the site, how we're going to launch the site, Are we going to do it in reference to material that needs to be developed? So we did all those things to kind of help create the actual site program and information material that you basically have access to now in regards to this particular program. You see on the screen right now where I share reference to that there's the 2 flyers that we basically utilize in regards to try to share out in reference to the sites that were being planned. Now, this is the 8th site outreach workshop that we have actually done within this program. So this is the 8th one, which is the last of this particular program, but we'll be doing more as we continue to repurpose. But a part of this site focus is really, our goal is to help the landowners to address heirs properly and really to help with the land retention issues and to understand the value of responsibly managing forest land. Of course, a lot of words being said, but pretty much, if I shorten it, it's basically how do we help you keep your land, and how do we help you keep money. So it's all about most time economics as we realize it here. But as I was indicating, of course, through the Texas site, there were 8 outreach meetings that we basically had planned and organized. Of course, this brochure, the flyers, actually represents those particular locations in reference to county, as well as which CBOs we have actually worked with to make this happen. And the outreach itself was done in partnership, of course, with with our partners. Of course, 100 Ranchers was a part of that our partnership here. The Texas Forestry, Small Farmers and Ranchers, as well as the Landowners Association of Texas, as well as Pineywood Small Farmers and Ranchers and the Landowners Association. So all of them help us to really comprise, to come together to think and figure out how can we best really devise this particular program, and how can we best reach the landowners to provide the assistance that we so desperately know that needs to be provided. So through that collaboration, the community-based organization, of course, as I just described, a part of the focus is really to help landowners to get involved with USDA programs, for one. For two, to also help families for property to keep it within inside of their family, and also to help understand the economics as well as the social and health benefits of a well-managed forest land. Of course, a well-managed forest land leads to economic return. So that's really key and important. And I know that as the Forest Service or Texas Forest Service will begin to talk a little bit later on, they'll share a little bit more details, maybe in that particular regard, because they're part of our partners and partnership here as well. So as a part of that partnership to help implement the SFLR program, again, as I just mentioned about the 100 Ranchers, as I mentioned about the Texas Agroforestry, Landowners Association, and Pineywood Small Farmers and Ranchers, and Landowners of Texas. We are also still partners really with USDA and RCS here in the state of Texas, as well as the USDA Farm Service Agency as well as the Texas Forest Service, as well as Philip Kaiser law, as well as Texas AgriLife, and as well as the Texas A&M University system. So we all came together really to see how we can actually find ways to provide this program through the network in the state of Texas, to provide assistance to the landowners here where we're at. So again, a part of that focus, part of our mission is really to help you better position from an heirs perspective, and as well as trying to make sure that we can help you in regards to have responsible forest management of the woodland, because most of the times, we don't know that sometimes something as valuable as what we have when it comes to woodlands as well. So again, just trying to give you a brief overview of what the program is and what the program represents. Of course, Purview represents and serves as a site for the program here in the state of Texas, as it is a part of the other 7 sites as well for the network. So again, I think I can stop and actually, if there's any questions that you may have, Ms. Moore, if there is any questions, if not, they can ask questions later, and I'll be more than happy to chime in where and when needed. I'm done, Ms. Moore.
I was saying I do not see any questions in the chat box at this time, but if there are any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question at this time. Okay. There do not appear to be any. So Dr. Bunch, I guess that means you were very thorough and explained everything very well. So thank you so very much for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
At this time, we will continue on our program. And the next person you'll hear from is one of our partnering attorneys who happens also to be a graduate of Prairie View A&M University. Attorney Stephen Hubbard is one of the founding and managing partners of Hubbard Law Firm. And he's based in East Texas. And I believe you're going to be very inspired and enlightened by the information that he's going to share with you today. So Attorney Hubbard, we welcome you, and we're anxious to hear all of the legal expertise you'll be able to share with us today. So as you unmute yourself, I'll unmute you.
Hold on. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Before I get started, how long do I have? Because you know lawyers can talk all day long.
I almost said as long as you like. But for the purpose of the agenda, 30 minutes.
I will put a timer on myself then.
30 minutes.
I got it. I have a timer on myself. So thank you, Ms. Moore, Dr. Bunch. You guys are bringing a great program to the state of Texas, and we really appreciate that. Also, I want to thank Greg Phillips with Phillips Kaiser. He's one of the partners, and he's not able to be here today. So in the spirit of baseball, I am the relief pitcher today. So I'm not the starter. I'm just coming in relief. I hope I do as well as he has done so far. Also, I wanted to thank someone that, and she doesn't even know she's been an inspiration to me. Miss Ratcliffe, Miss Kimberly Ratcliffe has been a huge inspiration to me and has helped me to start getting my farm together and trying to do a lot better than what I'm doing now. And I don't know about you guys, but it's been really stormy here and our lights went off. So I hope your lights are back on and everything is okay.
Thank you.
Now, let's get into some of the stuff. Ms. Ratcliffe, can I share my screen? Yes.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm going to do a short dive into heirs property and whatnot. But first, can you see my screen, Ms. Moore, everyone? Yes, good. I'm going to do a small dive into heirs property, and I hope I do a good enough job so Greg won't get upset with me and tell me don't ever do it again. So we're going to dive into it. The first thing is, what is heirs property? Basically, heirs property is any property that someone owns and they die without a will or die without a trust. And then if someone dies without a will, all their heirs, which means the people who would inherit from them, their children, their spouses, sometimes cousins, sometimes uncles, whomever that is, they are considered the heirs and they will own the property together. And so all together, they are called the heirs. Well, if looking at it, let's say mom and dad buys property together. And mom and dad, they did not do a will, but mom and dad had 4 children. Well, Michael owns a 4th, Sammy owns a 4th, Aretha owns a 4th, and Stevie owns a 4th. So now that property that was whole is owned by 4 people now. And let me put a pin right there. I had this conversation today with someone, and the conversation was this. I don't know what it is about us as African Americans, but we tend to believe that if we prepare a will and execute a will, we're going to die the next day. I don't know why we think that, but we do. It's a reality. And I hope to dispel some myths that you have, because I would say before, if you get to the age of my father, you should have done at least 5 wills by then, but that's another issue. But so we have mom and dad who didn't have a will, and they figure, you know what, my kids are going to get along, and I don't have to do anything because we raised them right. And so we're not doing a will. So now all 4 own 1/4 of the property. And it could be that they get along, but I guarantee you, once it hits that next generation, you're going to have some problems. I haven't seen it fail yet, where once it gets to the grandchildren, all hell breaks loose. Either Michael's kids don't want to pay taxes, Aretha kids are paying the taxes, Sammy kids may want to pay only half the taxes, and Stevie kids say, you know what, all of them are paying, so I'll pay next year, and next year never comes. And so then you have people who are upset because they're paying taxes, or they're living on the property. And Stevie's saying, you know what, since Aretha lives on the property, she can pay the taxes. But all in all 4 of them own 1/4. So what does that mean? Mom and dad bought 100 acres of land. Michael owns 25, Sammy owns 25, Aretha owns 25, and Stevie owns 25. Now, as I was alluding to, over the generations, mom and dad, then you have all the children. Then under the children have children. And then the children's children, they have children. And so you get to the point where sometimes it's untenable. And that's where we are getting it as far as land ownership. And this is a serious issue, because if everyone are heirs, then whomever is trying to either sell, buy, or whatever they're trying to do, get it all back together, you have to deal with everybody. So now let's look over the generations. Let's say Sammy had a wife and we're trying to sell the property. You have to deal with Sammy's wife. She may not own it, but she may have what's called a life estate in the property, but she won't own the property, especially if he had kids. But when you go down, you can have 50 people who own that 100 acres. So that acreage went from 100 to 25 each. Now we're down to 2 acres each, if all things being equal. And so you have an issue with the heir property as to who owns the land now, because someone could own the land and be in Afghanistan. Someone could be a landowner that's in Kingston. Someone could be a landowner that is in Shanghai. And so people from everywhere in the world could be part of that ownership of the land. And you have to deal with that. So what is title? Title is really the right of ownership and possession of land. And actually, a deed really proves title to the land. But in our example, you may not have a deed, the deed may have to go back to the parents, to the grandparents, to the great grandparents, and find out who actually owns that property. Now, this is the issue that a lot of people get into. Without clear title, you can't sell the land. Lenders won't use the land as collateral because it's really too risky, because they don't know unless someone does something about a title problem. Lenders don't want to lend on land where there are issues or there's one person coming in and there are about 10 other interest owners. So what happened? People will abandon the land. Again, you'll get delinquent property taxes, foreclosures would happen. And so there's reason to do that. And that's another reason why we have been losing land at an alarming clip. One is, and what I've seen in my practice, we don't pay the property taxes. And part of that is if Angela is living on the property, they're saying, well, she should pay all the taxes. Well, you're part owner of the property also. So you should be paying your fair share. And that's usually what happens. They don't pay the taxes and we lose the land because more than one person has a claim to a piece of land. And that's what's called a clouded title. Means the title is not clear because there's more than one person that could possibly own interest in that property. Now, what is a clouded title? How do we get there? Well, again, as I was saying, a person could die without a will, and you may have heirs that can't be located or don't want to be located. What's interesting is this forged documents. It was interesting. I had a case that we're litigating, and we were doing this the other day, and there were deeds to property from someone that was not even an heir. And I wonder how in the world could this happen? Well, they forged all the documents that allowed the sales to go through. So you're going to have that. So now we're filing a lawsuit to clear title and to undo a cloud. The other thing that happens is divorce. You may not realize it, but a lot of times when people buy property together and then get divorced, they do not take care of the business of dividing land, which means you're going to have a clouded title because that guy, that lady is going to say, wait a minute, I own part of this. And so that tends to bring a cloud in title. Then you have other liens against the property. Liens being, if it is property that is homestead property, it's basically a mortgage lien. But if it's not property that is not your homestead and it's other property, you may have other liens such that, you got sued. You didn't pay that credit card off and somebody sued you and got a judgment against you, and they will place a lien on your property. One that we were dealing with today is my client was buying some property from someone, and this guy did not pay his child support. And so the Office of the Attorney General put a lien on the property for this guy not paying his child support. And then my client is trying to buy the property saying, wait a minute, this isn't my debt. But the Attorney General was like, you know what? My lien was there. You need to pay it off. And then there are some other things that really don't in practicality, we don't hear too much about conflicting wills, clerical mistakes in public records, and similar names. Sometimes you have that, but it's not as prevalent as liens, divorce, forced documents, and people dying without a will. Now, how do you protect it? Title insurance. One thing you do is you go to the title company and they will tell you whether or not they can insure the property. And so once you do that, you will be able to get that property because the title company is saying you own this against anybody else in the world. And if anybody comes against you and says this is their property, we will defend you. And so that is a good reason to have title insurance. Okay, I may have to talk a little bit faster. Now, the title company, they research the ownership of the land, and what they will do, they will go in and say, these people are the owners of the land. They will get all these heirs and say, okay, these heirs own the land. These heirs need to sign off on this deed. And that's what the title company will do. Now, one good thing that I like doing, and I tell all my clients that I'm working with in this area, is do something simple. One, make a family tree. Two, go to your family reunions, talk to the older people, because they know. They may not say anything unless you come up to them. But that is the best way of finding out who is who in your family. For instance, your great aunt can tell you that Leroy, big Leroy over there, had a woman he was messing with when he was married to Sally Sue, and that they had a baby. And this person is in your family tree. If you don't talk to auntie, you'll never know. And because start selling that property, then little Leroy's child will come up and say, wait a minute, I'm also an heir to the property. So biggest thing is, please, please, please make a family tree, because that's what I use when we go to court. I'll ask you to tell me, who is your family? And once I get that, then I will search and look to make sure if there's anyone else possibly who could be a family member. You know, you can search county records. You can, of course, you can hire a title company, or sometimes what we do is we get private investigators to help us do this. But the biggest thing, that the most cost-effective thing to do is to make a family tree and update it. Don't make a family tree where everybody is grandma's age and it stops in 1950. You know, continuously update it, continuously update it. That's how you're going to, one, determine who are owners of the property. Now, this is where the meat and potatoes come. When you have heir property, what are some of the legal actions you have to clear it up? I usually do two things for the most part. One is partition, two is trespass to try title. Now, the question is, what is partition? Partition basically is saying that I'm an heir. We own this 100 acres of land. I own 10% of it, and I want my portion out. Now, sometimes you can give them their 2 acres and let them go their merry way. Sometimes, and a lot of times, that interest owner will force a sale of the entire tract of land. That's because sometimes when it gets to grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, the amount of property that is actually owned by every heir gets to be infinitesimal, that there's no reason, there's no real way of dividing the property. For instance, we had someone that wanted to divide the property out. They had, I think it was like 25 acres, but there were 100 people who were claiming as an heir. So there was no way that everybody would have road frontage and have their little piece of the pie. So that property had to be sold. Now, someone in the family could have purchased it, but still, that one person who wanted their little slice of the pie, they forced a sale on everyone. Then you have the second thing is, and we do it a lot, is trespass to try title. That's when there's a problem with clouded title. Two people are saying they are owning the property through a similar person, entity, or whomever. That's how they receive the property. So we're suing to say who has the right to the property, who actually owns the property. One thing, third one is adverse possession. And adverse possession is basically, let's say Mr. Mills purchased a piece of property and he didn't have total right to the property, but he stayed on the property for a length of time that corresponded with one of the actions of court, saying that you stayed there long enough, you used it open and notorious, and then it's your property through what's called adverse possession. Those cases are not easy cases, but those are some of them that will do. Let me answer a question. I'm sorry. Just continue to ask your questions. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the chat. The question is, if I'm told by a person holding 16 of the 90 heirs to sign a POA, and I'm thinking POA is power of attorney, what you're talking about, to divide the property, stated she doesn't want no concessions of the property. Okay. If someone is going to sign, well, let me back up. A power of attorney, you don't use that we don't use a power of attorney to transfer property from one person to another. First of all, you use a power of attorney for a lot of other things, but when you start using a power of attorney to transfer property, you start getting on that slippery slope. Now, if you can get those 16 people to sign a deed, then you will do a lot better than doing a power of attorney, asking someone to sign a deed or giving you a right to do it. Now we do, as a guardian, we do have people like that to sign deeds, because everything will be court ordered and you will have the protection of the court. And so that would be one of the things I would do, would be have a guardianship and do it that way. Next question. It is basically the same thing about having the power of attorney for land division. I usually don't like using a power of attorney for land division, because you will start getting on a slippery slope. Then the question becomes, someone can come in and say, well, you use your influence to the person's detriment to get this property transferred. And if this person was in their right mind, that they would not do that. And so that would be one of the reasons why you really wouldn't want to use a power of attorney, but using a guardianship to do it is the preferred way. Okay, now we're getting to, wait a minute, did I miss it? I'm sorry. I think I got, wait a minute. I think I got off a little bit, but that's okay. Here we are. quiet title action. That's basically, quiet title is basically saying we have an issue in the property as far as title, and judge, we want the quiet title to say these people have no interest in this land. And those, they're basically the legal actions you use to clear title issues, okay? Now, everyone, if you're in Smith County, you have not received your tax statements unless they came out today, but usually they come out in October. So you're counting to January 31st that you have to have all your property taxes paid, okay? Now, if you don't pay them by the 31st of January, there's an automatic lien that comes on your property, and you will better pay, because if not, that first month, there is going to be some penalty that you're going to have to pay. And every month after that, you have penalties that you're going to have to pay. And so if you don't pay, that's where the tax foreclosures come in. And usually most taxing authorities will give you a year or two to pay your taxes. You know, sometimes they've given you even 5 to 10 years, depending on the county and depending on how aggressive the taxing authorities are. But you want to make sure that all taxes are paid. Now, the question becomes, if there are a lot of heirs, what if I pay for my heir? Can I foreclose against my heir? And I tell everybody this: my property taxes are coming out soon. If you want to pay my taxes, please, 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 let me give you my account number and whatnot. You can pay my taxes all day long. You can pay them in Smith County, Bowie County. You can pay them in Gregg County. You can pay them in Henderson County. So if you want to pay my taxes, please feel free. I do not mind. The same thing as far as your heirs are concerned. They don't mind either, because even though you pay their taxes, it does not mean you own the property. It just means you are being very, very generous and paying their taxes for them. Now, if the taxes are not paid, then that's when you go into tax foreclosure. The taxing entity will do that, and then they will have what's called a public sale, and anybody can buy it at that time. Now, the alternative to heir property, one is, and this is one that is I think is really good, is having a family limited partnership. But you really need to be careful how you draw up the partnerships. But what would happen is the partnership can be an entity that keeps the property in your family. For instance, let's go back to the first example of mom and dad. Then you had Michael, Sammy, Aretha, and Stevie. Well, what they could have done, put all the land in a family partnership, and then they could have an agreement, whereas when one person wants to get out, then the other partners buy their interest in the land, and the land stays in the family. Sounds good, right? Makes sense. That's one way of keeping the land there. Question: if there's a will in place that identify the heirs, can the will be changed to reflect some of the heirs' wishes and don't reflect the original will? The answer is no. The will is that person's will. Once they die, you don't change the will. Now, what could happen if the heirs are in agreement? They could do what's called a family settlement. But as far as changing the will, no, you do not change the will, but you can have what's called a family settlement. Okay. Now, the family limited partnership will actually help keep land in the family, especially when you have it written up the correct way, because some people don't actually write family limited partnerships up correctly, and you can still lose the land even with that designation of the partnership. Now, some of the things that we're trying to do is the SFLR is trying to help us keep property. The partnership, the Partition of Heirs Property Act is codified in Texas, so we just call it partition. And so that's some of the initiatives and policies that we're doing. And so if you would, because I know I'm out of time, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. If you own property anywhere in the state of Texas, please know what your interest is in that property and keep up with it. Please make sure that you have your will together, or you're giving the property to someone, or you are actually doing a trust or a family partnership. Do something so you can give the land to whether it is your children, your grandchildren, or whomever. Or it could be just a friend, but someone that you know will do what's best and do something to help you, your family, or whatever initiative that you want to do. And with that, Ms. Moore, I'm going to yield. Thank you again for allowing me to speak. One last thing. We were just doing basic air stuff. Ms. Moore can tell you, because I will actually be doing a legal clinic in November. I think it's in 1 or 2 weeks, something like that. I'll be doing a legal clinic, and we will actually go into specifics about heirs, wills, trust, and gambit of and probate of things that will actually be of substance to you to help you in protecting and keeping your land. With that, I yield, Ms. Moore.
Thank you, Attorney Hubbard. Are there any questions? I don't see any in the chat box just yet.
Yeah, there are a couple.
Okay, I see one from Mr. Mills. Do you want to ask outright, Mr. Mills, or?
Well, I think he just read that one and he gave me the answer, no. So that answered my question.
Okay, well, for the sake of everybody else, though, I will go ahead and read what the question was so that they will understand as well. And the question is, if there is a will in place that identifies the heirs, can the will be changed to reflect some of the heirs' wishes that don't reflect the original will? And we are.
I'm sorry, I had muted myself. Okay. What I was saying was, when someone does a will and they die, you cannot change the will unless all the heirs and everybody that is in the will, they come in and do a family settlement agreement. If that happens, then yes, you can change it that way. Barring that, the answer is no, you cannot change that will.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right.
There's another question. What is a quiet title action?
The quiet title is basically trying to make sure that you are the only owner of property. For instance, and usually in these type of cases, you may have, let's say you have the same name as someone, and there's a lien placed on your property, and you want to say, wait a minute, it's not me. So I'm going to sue the quiet title because your lien is affecting my title to property. it's similar to what we were talking about in not adverse possession, but it's similar to like a partition, getting someone out of the ownership realm of your property. So you want to make sure you quiet title that you are the only owner of that property.
Okay. And Ms. Pamela Hodge wishes to know, are there parameters that make a trust better than an LLP?
Well, it really depends on what you're trying to do. An LLP is a limited liability partnership. Trust, basically you can do what you want to. Both are entities in themselves. It depends on, do you like chocolate ice cream or do you like vanilla ice cream? Other thing is, what do you want to do with this LLP as versus a trust? To me, it depends on what you are wanting to do. That will really, to me, determine what I want to do. If you're just wanting to pass property to someone, doing a trust, may be okay, but in Texas, having a will is a lot better because, people will charge you $15,000, $20,000 to do a trust. Whereas in a will, you can do a will for $1,500 or less, and you can accomplish the same thing. In Texas, the probate process is a lot easier, but in California, the probate process is a lot harder. So they do trust in California, whereas they don't like going to probate. In Texas, it's the opposite. We are good in probate and trust costs more. You can get the same thing accomplished, whether it's a trust or an LLP or a will. It just depends on what you are comfortable with and what you really want to do and what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay. And there's a question about your contact information, and we'll be distributing that a little later as we talk about the legal clinic and other legal services that each of the attendees may qualify for.
Okay, but last question, and I'm seeing this now. I'm sorry, I'm
Okay.
just not looking.
Okay.
Is identifying heirs the same as an affidavit of heirship? That answer is no. In doing an affidavit of heirship, you have to identify the heirs, but just identifying them is not the same. The affidavit of heirship is a document that you're actually going to file with either the court or the county clerk's office.
And there's some others.
And yes, Ms. Tatum, I will be willing to speak to you to help you, coach you what to say. That's not a problem. Oh, I'm sorry, my contact information. I am so sorry. Miss Moore, could you put up my contact information by the end of the session? Because I'm sorry, the ladies here have left the building and they are the ones that usually help me. So I'm sorry, I'm not as computer savvy as they are. So I'm gonna have to ask Ms. Moore, if you have it, please share it. And I think we better get to the next one, or they won't allow, Mr. Phillips won't allow me to do this for him anymore.
Okay, I think there's one final question. Can a quiet title action be used to get control of an heirship property?
It depends on the facts of the case. Everything really depends on what the facts of the cases are. And that's the short and sweet answer. The facts determine what will happen. And so if the facts determine that a quiet title action will do it, then it will. If the facts say that a quiet title will not do it, then it won't suffice. So it depends on the facts of the case.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
And there's my information. Thank you so much, Ms. Moore.
You're very welcome. All right. So that's just a snippet of the information that you will get about heirship and heir properties and the issues that heirs face when they're dealing with that. For more detailed information, we will be having a legal clinic on November 16th. And if you give me a moment, I'll share the screen with you. And it's going to be from 1 to 4 p.m. on November 16th. And you'll hear from Attorney Hubbard at that time, and he'll go more in depth into heirs property, wills, estates, and a whole gamut of other legal information. So just stay tuned for that. And
Okay.
so at this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Ms. Callie Lovelace is currently serving as the County Executive Director with the USDA Farm Service Agency. And she's going to be speaking with us today about the FSA and resources that are available to landowners. So, Ms. Lovelace.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm on my laptop. It's not the best.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good deal. So first I'm going to go over real briefly. There's a Heirs property relending program. I honestly don't know much about it. Our state office hasn't told us a whole lot. I do know that it's going to be coming out. The main thing it's for is to help with any legal costs that if you're an heirs property and need help getting it titled, it can help with the cost of that. I think the maximum is going to be $600,000. It is a loan, so you do have to pay it back. If you were wanting more information, my recommendation would be to, you can look on farmers.gov and kind of get updates on it. But right now they're trying to reach out and get lenders for it. They don't have any quite yet, but Smith County, if you're in Anderson County, Smith County, the farm loan manager there or the farm loan PT, her name is Jane, can help you. I can put that information in the chat box, or Angela, if you'd rather me email it to you, I can do that, whatever you want me to do. That would be my recommendation, because if you call me, I'll definitely try and help you, but that's not something that I'm actually going to be personally doing. But I just wanted to mention that if any of y'all have heirs property and might think you need any kind of help as far as funding, keep that in mind for sure. Okay. The next thing I wanted to go over payment eligibility with all of you, and then also how to get a farm serial number, or farm number is what we typically call it. So the first thing is we're going to need either a deed or a lease, or both, depending on how you own your property, how you operate your property. We have to have that on file in order to put you on a farm. That's just our regulations, like it or not, that's what we have to have. We do have example lease forms. If you have a handshake deal right now and need an owner to sign it, I can give you an example of what we need and what information needs to be on it, if that would help you, because I know a lot of people just handshake out in the field and they don't have an actual written lease that's actually signed. The other thing that helps is if you have a survey plat, if that was done whenever you purchased your property, if you can give that to us, that's very helpful. If you don't have that, if you can go on Google Maps or a similar site and get a satellite image of the property and email that to us, that's also helpful. Or if you're not real computer savvy, you can always make an appointment to come to our office and you can just show us on our actual software where it's at, and we can do it that way too, whatever is easier for y'all. The next thing is, if you have heirs property, you don't have a clear title, you don't have a will to give me, we do have some guidance on what we need. All I have right now is honestly a fact sheet. I'm going to read it off to you. If that pertains to you, call us. We'll go over it with you more thoroughly and help you through the process to get you on a property. But I will warn you, it's probably going to be a little lengthy if you haven't started it yet. Okay. So Texas is part of the Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act, or UPHPA. And they're just part of that act. And it makes it a little bit easier in order to get put on a property versus any other states that aren't part of that act. So what you need to bring to us, if you don't have a will, if you don't have a deed or anything like that, you need a court order verifying that the land meets the definition of an heir's property, okay? Which, if you don't have a clear title, you're an heir's property owner, okay? And I need a certification from the local recorder of deeds that the recorded owner of the land is deceased, and at least one heir has initiated a procedure to retitle the land. Okay. Like I said, we can go over that in more detail. If that pertains to any of y'all and you need help, I can definitely look into that further and help make that clearer, and we can get it figured out. But I will be honest, it's not something we deal with a lot, but I can certainly figure it out and help you. So the next thing you're going to have to do in order to be eligible for any kind of program payments, either through FSA or the Farm Service Agency or NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Some of y'all might know them as SCS. It was a soil conservation service back until I think the early 90s is when they switched it over, if I'm remembering correctly. So I know some people switch it back and forth. But the first thing you're going to need to fill out as far as an eligibility form is what we call a CCC 941 or adjusted gross income form. You're going to have to fill this out for every year that you're wanting to get a payment. So if you wanted to get something this year, we're in FY 2022 right now, so that's the one you're going to fill out. And you're going to certify on that form that you made less than 900,000 adjusted gross income for the 3 preceding years, skipping the most current previous year. So for 2022, that's going to be 18, 19, and 20. We're going to be looking at averaging together. Okay. The next thing you're going to have to fill out is an 80-1026 form. This is a highly erodible wetland certification form. On this form, you're going to certify that you haven't broken any new ground to plant, let's say wheat or oats or anything, corn, whatever, and you haven't cleared any land or trees and taken out the stumps. If you have, that's fine. It just means you need to let us know. NRCS will go out and look at it and make sure your property is not highly erodible and it's not on a wetland. That's all they're going to do. It's not a big deal, but it is something you're going to have to fill out in order to be eligible for any kind of payment. The next thing is an 80-2047. This is just a basic form capturing your name, your legal name, your mailing address, your social security number, or if you're an entity, your EIN number. We're going to be getting your email address, your phone number, all that type of information and put in our software so we have all the information on you that we need. Okay. The next thing is going to be the CCC 902 form or the farm operating plan. This form is used to gather information about what land you own or you lease, where your capital comes from or where your money comes from. Do you have a note with the bank for your land or to run your cattle? Or is it all out of pocket? Or is it a little bit of both? We need to kind of know where your money comes from. We also need to know if you own or lease your equipment. Honestly, I've never come across anyone that leases their equipment. That's usually in big farming country that they do that. That is a question we have to ask you. The next thing is who contributes labor to the operation. So do you hire any help to help you throughout the year? Do you do it all yourself? Do you have family members that help you? We just need to know that basic information. And then we also need to know who contributes management to the operation. So that's going to be your day-to-day purchasing decisions, hiring decisions, FSA and RCS forms, tax preparation, things of that nature. Okay. The next thing is if you're going to be operating as an entity and you want to get payments through your entity, so let's say an LLC, we're going to need all your LLC docs. So your articles of organization, the letter from the Secretary of State stating that the LLC is registered, all those types of form, your organizational minutes, if you have those, your schedule or exhibit A, if you have that. Also, we like to get the SS4 form. That's the IRS letter that has your EIN number on it, but a lot of people lose it. So it's not, we don't have to have it. We just prefer to have it. And guys, that's it. I know I went really fast, but this is not something that to be scared of. Anytime you're going to call the office. We'll help you through any of these forms, whether we do it through email, phone, in person. We'll definitely help you every step of the way. We do have instructions we send out to help you fill out the forms, and everything is highlighted. So don't be afraid to call us. We're here to help you. And I know that the NRCS is the same way. So does anybody have any questions, concerns, anything you need me to clarify? I appreciate y'all letting me present today.
There is a question in the chat box.
Oh, okay. Let me pull that up.
Okay.
Let's see here. What if our property is on a wetland? That's a trace question or NRCS question. He's going to go out there and look at it. And just depending on where that wetland is on your property, there's certain restrictions to what you can do. So a lot of times we'll just draw off where that's at and you just don't touch it, don't do anything with it. But that is more of a NRCS question as to exactly what you can and can't do if it is in fact a wetland.
Okay. Any other questions?
If we are in another county, can we reach out to other counties for help? You can. The best thing is to call that county office if at all possible. But if you're having trouble with them and need help from us, you can call us. We just prefer you to call over there because we don't like to step on anybody's toes. But yes, that is an option. And a lot of producers have several counties. They're, throughout the state, and they kind of have their favorite that they call, and that's perfectly fine too. So.
Okay. Kelly, I will say that we've gotten a lot of interest in the heir property relending program.
Yes, ma'am. I figured you would.
So we've gotten a lot of calls, emails, etc. And so what we've been doing is explaining to people that, at least how we understand it, is that what the status is right now is that it's been opened up for lenders to
Yes.
apply
Yes.
to participate in the program.
Yes.
And so at some later time, once the lenders are selected, then those lenders will be where landowners can go and make application for loans.
Yes,
Not
ma'am.
grants, but loans.
Yes, ma'am.
To cover expenses to resolve heir issues.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. I didn't know if you had any other information you want to.
That is all that I went on there. Josh sent me a specialist, outreach specialist sent me that and told me a little bit. I went on farmers.gov and read the same thing y'all did to figure it out.
Okay.
Also, too, Ms. Moore, you can kind of mention that, of course, Joshua is going to be participating in the clinic that's going to be held in November as well. So as a part of that relending information you'll be sharing.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions. So, Callie, we thank you again for us presenting today, and
yes, ma'am.
Terrific partner, and thank you again.
Thank y'all.
Okay. Next up, we have Mr. Trace Wolf. Trace is the soil conservationist with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, and he'll be speaking with us today about financial assistance programs.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. Well, as Ms. Moore just said, I am Trace Wolf, or commonly referred to as Kenneth Wolf, but please call me Trace. Kenneth is my grandfather. But I've been working here as a soils con with the NRCS for about a year in Anderson County, and wish we could be doing our seminar face-to-face with all of y'all so we could get to know each other a little bit better, but we'll make do with what we got. And I'll go ahead and jump into my presentation here. And Mr. Adams, I'll semi-answer your question a little bit with one of the slides I have. I I would honestly refer you to our website page where it has all of our programs that we offer and kind of exactly what details them. And if you want, Ms. Moore can also provide you my information. And if you would like any other assistance specifically with one of those programs, give us a call in the office and we can talk about it. But okay, I'm gonna jump over and share my screen now. Let's see, can everybody see that?
Nothing yet. Oh, there we go.
Come in, my internet's a little slow, sorry. Okay, so like I said, again, my name is Trace Wolf, soil conservationist here in Anderson County. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the NRCS and the different kind of financial programs we assist with. So first, let's start with a little bit of brief history for us. As Callie mentioned, we originally, when we were first created in 1935, we were called the SCS, or Soil Conservation Service. And this was due to a response from the devastating impacts of the Dust Bowl that was happening at that time. And of course, as time has gone on, not only has our management strategies changed, but also our name has changed along with it as well. So over time, our agency has evolved into looking at more resources beyond just soil and cropland. And in 1994, Congress actually changed our name to the Natural Resource Conservation Service to better reflect our efforts of conserving and or improving our natural resources. If I could sum up exactly what we do, it kind of goes off of our mission statement here. We deliver conservation solutions so agricultural producers can protect natural resources and feed a growing world. Kind of just a quick overview of how to get in contact with us. We do have a website. It's pretty simple. All you'll do is you'll go into Google and type in Texas NRCS, and it should, the first hyperlink should bring up this page here that you're seeing. You'll hit contact us in the top right, which will then bring up another form, another web page where you'll select local service centers. And from there, basically, it'll bring up a big map of Texas, and you'll find Anderson County or whichever county you're out of. And when you click on that specific county, it'll actually bring up all the USDA centers located in that county and how to get in contact with those offices. So the NRCS is a very broad agency. We cover a lot of areas, and it really just kind of depends on what part of the state you're in or what part of the country you're in. But kind of how I tell people what I do is we kind of have two sides to our job. One side, of course, is our financial assistance programs, which I'll get into a little bit more once we get later on in the PowerPoint. But my favorite part of the job itself is actually our technical assistance. And what our technical assistance is again, we offer a wide range of agricultural advice. I can't tell you how many times we've had people call in with just simple questions, like my pond's got kind of a redness to it. How can I go about clearing that up? I'm having some erosion issues. Can y'all come out and take a look at it and just discuss some possible alternatives with me? Stuff along those lines. And it's really one of the aspects I greatly enjoy about this job because one, I get to come out and meet some cool producers and get to talk to them on their place and then also help them in any way I can from a technical standpoint and then also sometimes from a financial standpoint. And so as I was mentioning, it is a two-sided job. So of course our bread and butter and probably the one we get most of advertisement for, I guess you could say, is our EQIP program. That's kind of our golden child as far as a financial assistance program. And then we also have our CSP Conservation Stewardship program as well. One thing to realize about these two programs is that the sign up is always continuous. We will always accept an application that you submit to us. And the financial assistance opportunities will fall under the new 2018 Farm Bill. And once, of course, that's updated every 4 years, once the 2022 Farm Bill goes into effect, we will be falling under it as well. And so this is a brief slide kind of over exactly what Callie went over, and she did a lot better job of it than I will because that is her bread and butter. And I'll just quickly glance over it with y'all, but basically some of the eligibility that you'll need to get up to date. If you'll just simply call Callie or Amber or Bailey there in Anderson County and let them know you're signing up for EQIP and you need to get your farm records up to date, they'll take care of you and get you filled out with exactly what you need regarding your EGI, your annual adjusted gross income, of course, your highly erodible land and wetland conservation requirements. Oh, and that reminds me, I need to go back for Mr. Adams' question, and I'll do that real quick. Sorry. So on this website, Mr. Adams, this is where I would send you, sir, because as you'll see right next to that Contact Us tab, there is a Programs tab, and that has all of the programs that we offer. If you wanted to go and take a look at those and see which ones interested you, there are some strictly directed towards wetland. If you wanted to look at those and then get in contact with me, we can talk more about it later. But okay, let's get back to where we were at. Okay. And so really the biggest thing from the NRCS side that we need to make sure we're doing as far as making sure we're eligible for the EQIP program is that we're at least addressing one natural resource concern. And some of the common resource concerns we'll see here in Anderson County, you know, like I mentioned earlier, erosion or degraded plant condition, inadequate livestock water, some of the more common ones specifically. But the goal of this program and the actual name of the EQIP program, as we call it, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, is to address natural resource concerns and deliver environmental benefits. And then you'll notice below there are some common forestry practices that we do here: forest site preparation, tree/shrub establishment, and prescribed burning are some very common ones. Some benefits you could also see with working through this program would include improved water and air quality, conserved ground and surface water, increased soil health, and reduced soil erosion and sedimentation. Some of the challenges you could see in the forestry side of it include addressing weather extremes and growing resiliency, healthy forests that address the variety of ecosystem services beyond fiber production needs. One important aspect to keep in mind, because this is a common question we get, some of the things we will not be able to help you with financially will be paying for boundary fences. We can assist with cross fences, but nothing that would be considered a perimeter fence. If you were looking to convert a pasture from Bahia grass to Bermuda grass, we won't be able to financially assist with that. Building a pond, that's another one we get a lot of questions about here in Anderson County specifically. If there's inadequate livestock water, we will pay for that pond, but some of the factors we have to meet with it are that we have adequate soils for that pond, adequate drainage, and a legitimate livestock, or for example, cattle, goats, sheep, etc. So getting more specifically on forest lands themselves, EQIP contracts on non-industrial private forest land, or NIPF as we call it, will require a forest management plan. And what that plan is a site-specific plan that addresses forestry-related conservation activities according to the client's objectives, And just one thing to keep in mind, these plans can range in size and length. And of course, it all depends on the client's objective. So for those forest management plans, we as the NRCS will sometimes build the plans ourselves, but we really like to go to a third party to have those plans done. And they'll be developed by a professional resource manager in consultation with the participant and based on criteria approved by the state conservationist. Our partners with Texas A&M Forest Service can work with our producers to develop a forest stewardship plan to address this requirement. Okay, and so I'll just start with this. The EQIP process, the next two slides are going to kind of go over exactly that process, but I want y'all to understand this is a lengthy process. It is not as quick as it seems. I'm sure some of you are well aware of working with the government has hoops to jump through, and us that actually work for the government have hoops we have to jump through as well with you. So it is a lengthy process, but I will say probably the most important thing to do is just to keep in contact with us. You know, if stuff isn't getting moved as fast as you think it should be and you haven't heard from us in a while, call us. I mean, that's the quickest way you can get information from us and the quickest way we can get any questions cleared up. But typically how the EQIP process will go is you'll start by submitting an EQIP application or an application form itself. From there, we'll develop a conservation plan by conducting a field visit with you out on site to understand the resources conduct a resource inventory out on your property and assess the existing conditions, and then depending on the resource concerns you have, what planned practices we can implement to address those. And then of course, develop a forest management plan for specifically NIPF. After this point, we'll have the closing of our sign up window. And then at that point, you will go into the assessment/ranking window. And essentially what that is when you will be competing against the other applicants we have here in Anderson County. And depending on what your ranking score is will determine whether you receive funding for that specific window or not. The funding, of course, is based on, how much funds we get sent to us from Washington each year, your ranking score, and then if you meet that threshold where, we've still got funds available, you have a high enough ranking score, you'll receive word that your application has been funded. And then at that point, we'll go into what we call our pre-obligation checklist, which is just a massive audit I myself have to put together for all the applicants we have in Anderson County who receive funding, and we'll send them up for review by our state office. And then once that has been done, you will come in for a signature on your contract. And by this point, if we're talking in terms of if you turn in your application today, what is today, October 27th or 28th, and you would be coming in to sign your contract probably around March or April. So just to give you a time frame of everything. Once you sign your contract with us, that is the start for you to begin your practices. Up until this point, it's important that you don't start any practices, depending on what you're signed up for, because if you do, that unfortunately will make you ineligible to receive payment for those practices on the back end. So again, just remember, once you sign the contract, you're able to begin to construct those practices, whatever they may be. And once you have done that, be in constant contact with us. If you have any questions regarding the installation or design on anything, be in contact with us. We'll answer those questions or get you to somebody who can answer those questions. Once the practices have been implemented and you have contacted us to let us know they are done, we will come out and do a certification on those practices based upon our standards that we will go with you ahead of time. And then once we deem that the practice has been completed with those standards, you will receive payment. Excuse me, sorry, I had to get a shot of water. One important thing to remember with our funding and payment rates is it's based on cycles and is quite competitive. But an important thing we've been doing, and that has been mentioned previously with the other presenters, is we do have separate fund codes set aside for different types of historically underserved farmers, as we call them, or HUs. And those groups include socially disadvantaged groups, beginning farmer and rancher, veterans, farmer and rancher, and limited resource farmer and rancher. And to give you kind of a definition of what each of those groups are, a socially disadvantaged group is a group whose members have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice. These groups include American Indians, Alaskan Natives, Asians, Black or African Americans, Native Hawaiians, or other Pacific Islanders, and Hispanics. The definition for beginning farmer and rancher is someone who has not operated a farm or ranch more than 10 consecutive years. The definition for a veteran farmer and rancher is a veteran who has been released from service under conditions other than dishonorable within the most recent 10-year period. And an important thing to remember for the veteran farmer and rancher is that you also have to meet the criteria for a beginning farmer and rancher to meet the veteran farmer and rancher criteria as well. And lastly is the limited resource farmer and rancher. This HU takes into account farm sales and household income over the previous 2 years for Anderson County. And there's actually a hyperlink on our actual application form that will take you to a site that will tell you that gross income, and you can then determine whether you meet the criteria for that farmer or rancher or not. So that was a pretty quick and very general overview of our EQIP program. The other program I mentioned previously was our CSP program. And if I could put the CSP program into one sentence, I would basically say the EQIP program would basically be you building up, the conservation on your property up. And then the CSP would be like taking the next step with your conservation. And so, of course, you'll see on here, the goal for it is to maintain and improve resource conditions by implementing additional conservation activities. And then a good quote down at the bottom, another way to look at it is CSP is all about meeting a threshold and moving the needle in a positive direction with respect to conservation benefit. And lastly, before I totally finish up, just some tips for success with working with us. Review the application and contract appendix. You know, that's going to have all the information in it regarding what to expect working with us, just kind of the ins and outs and rules and regulations, if you will. Ask questions. I mean, I can't stress it enough. I can't tell you how many times people have called in and asked, well, why haven't I been told the next steps or anything like that? To tell you the truth, I just didn't know. One important thing to remember is we do have several contracts and several applications we have to manage over the years and everything like that. But again, just contact us and ask any questions you have. We definitely enjoy getting to talk with our producers and helping them out any way we can. Also check in occasionally with the local field office. It was a lot easier before the pandemic happened. We unfortunately currently have to keep our offices locked. We as the NRCS, and only can do appointments by phone or schedule an appointment out on your property with you. But again, like I said, check in occasionally with us. Understand the practice standards, specifications, enhancement requirements, and required documentation. This is stuff we will go over with you at the time of your contract signing or before you start your practices. This is what we call our pre-obligate or our pre-construction period. Again, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out to us. Have a plan, you know, be ready, just kind of have the ball ready to get rolling once you come in and sign your contract. Start calling contractors, forester if you need to, start putting together a cost materials list for if you're building a fence or something like that. Another important aspect to keep in mind, this is a recent change, but once you go into contract with us, we have to have a planned item implemented. And what that means is paid on within the first 12 months of that, with that contract. Now, there are some modifications and things we can do on the back end, depending on what caused that practice to not get completed in the first 12 months. But if we can stick with the plan and get it done on schedule, that's going to be the easiest way. And that speaks to the next point, stick to the plan practice schedule. We have a document that will have laid out exactly what practice is due to be completed by what year. And it's just a good job sheet to keep with you and almost like a checklist going down. Also understand the cost to you. So like I mentioned, during the sign-up process, you can't start any work until you sign your contract. However, that does not keep you from talking to consultants, getting contractors, you know, getting a price list together, figuring out exactly how much this is going to cost you. So when you come in to sign your contracts, you will have a general idea of how much we're going to be covering, and can decide at that point whether you want to continue with the contract or not. And that's really all I have, guys. I know that was pretty quick as well, and these are really big programs, and I'm sorry I couldn't give you a more in-depth look into them specifically, but then we'd be sitting here all night. Now I don't want to hold anybody else's time up. But I do appreciate y'all having me on, and I look forward to hopefully hearing from a lot of y'all and getting to meet y'all in person.
Okay, Trace, we do have a couple of questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Hold on one moment. Ms. Pamela Hodge wants to know, does the CRP offer grants for boundary fences to improve pasture management practices?
So no, ma'am. Boundary fences, unfortunately, we don't help cost share on. We only deal with cross fences that would be deemed inside the boundary fences, unfortunately.
Okay, and I believe Kimberly was asking, EQIP program have income level restraints?
Let me see. Have income level restraints? No, ma'am, not necessarily. All the there wouldn't be any restraints required with it. That if, and I believe, y'all don't hold me to this, but I believe what our limited resource income HU, what I was meaning with it is I believe if you make less than $25,000 a year was this past year's limit for it. That's kind of the area you would fall under. But as far as income level, no, there's no restraints on it. The only one I would say is probably the AGI with FSA. If you make more than $900,000 a year, then that unfortunately makes you ineligible at that point. But that's the only one I know of.
And Pamela Hodge also wants to know, do all EQIP applications have to be submitted in 2021 to be eligible for funding in 2022?
So we actually have I won't say several, depending on how much funds we have available and how many applications we have. We do have at least 2 sign-up windows that I've been a part of each year. One, this, and I'll go off of this past year, but our first sign-up window deadline was December 4th in 2020. And our second sign-up deadline was in February. And then I believe I don't think we had a third one after that, but we typically have 1 to 2 each year. So just because you have an application and you sign up for 2021 doesn't mean, it doesn't guarantee you will get funded, and it doesn't guarantee that you won't get funded. It's more so, I would just say, go ahead and submit the application and see where the cards may fall at that point. Hopefully that answered your question. That was a very good answer.
Okay. I see Jacqueline has a question on, if she'll unmute, she can go ahead and ask that question. Jacqueline.
Okay.
Jacqueline?
Oh, let's see. I think is her questions about beginning farmers.
Yeah. So in your opinion, actually I have a couple of questions, but in your opinion for beginning farmers, when
Yes, ma'am.
they really don't know where to go other than the FSA office, is it, and they don't know a lot about these programs, is it the FSA's responsibility to kind of help them figure it out or help them figure out programs that might be useful once they go out to look at their property? Because the reason why I'm asking that, I've been in this for 2.5 years, and some of these, and I have had some help from FSA, but some of these programs like EQIP and the animal, what is it? I don't have my paper here.
You're good.
Yeah, and even the CRP was never mentioned to me, and I've asked about the fencing. So be it boundary or your inner fencing, and there was no response to that. So what do you think? Yeah.
So I can't really speak to FSA more so. That would be more of a Cali question. But for us as the NRCS, technical assistance as far as us coming out to your property and doing a site assessment with you, or just checking your property and seeing what you have and what you could possibly do. That's a common question we get all the time. And we're more than willing to come out, we'll come out and we'll ask you what your goals are. If you've got cattle that you're grazing, or if you're looking for more of an NIPF, the forestry land, we'll tell you, we've got these programs that could help you, assist you with such and such, or you can go this route with these other programs. So it would be, I would say, to answer your question, and I don't think I'm doing a very good job of it, but it would.
But even with the NRCS office, you would think that they too would be able to, kind of inform you of some things as well. And I apologize, I meant to say the NRCS office, not the FSA office.
Oh, okay. No, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah,
I will say that the CARP program is a very new program, and I don't believe fence is actually on the list of practices that will receive a bump in pay or a new a raised cost share rate, which is what I believe the original intent of the CARP program was. It was for more so for practices that were already scheduled to be completed this year and were in response to the raise in fencing materials or lumber materials, stuff along those lines. So that's what the CARP program is specifically for. But again, back to your boundary fence question, we as the NRCS, and I'm only speaking again from, I've only been here for a year. So, but in all the time I've been here is we don't assist with boundary fences. And once you get a property boundary fence up and you're interested in grazing your livestock or rotational grazing your livestock, at that point, we can assist with any cross fences that you would be putting in the interior of your property. Does that make sense?
so does the cross fencing, is that based on, it's cost sharing too, I assume, but is that based on the amount of money in that county, and does it take as long as it would take for the equip process?
So actually, I would have, if you were interested in, or actually, hold on, let me get myself straight here. So the way we pay on cross fences, it's based on a fixed payment rate, and the way they go about getting those payment rates, it changes each year, but they'll do, I believe, an average of contractors in not only here in Texas, but also in Oklahoma and Louisiana, and get an average for what they're charging to build the cross fences, and we'll actually pay on a fixed rate at that point. Like I believe this last year we paid on $1.50 a foot for cross fences specifically. And that's kind of how we go about paying for those cross fences. But if you were interested in signing up for cross fences, I believe you would want to be going through the EQIP program, not the CARP program.
Okay, so it would still be to equip, and then it may take a while. It's still a lengthy process.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay. Okay.
And Trace, let me just, this is Ike Mills, let me just
Yes,
kind of chime in, kind of add to that. And I certainly need to get Ms. Jacqueline's information, because we just received actual beginner farmer ranchers grant. So I certainly need to talk with her in reference to that to kind of help her guide through that process. But she's talking about perimeter fencing. That's been one of the issues that serving on that STAC committee that we recommended, but from the state level, they're not doing that. So working with the policy center, we're looking to include that to be initiated again with this next farm bill that we're currently working on right now. So I do need to get, Ms. Jacqueline, I do need to get your contact information.
Yes, I'll be on a call with you next week, so we will definitely talk then.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, okay.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Horace Hodge has the floor. I believe he has an announcement he'd like to make.
Well, thank you, Angela. And first of all, let me just thank Dr. Clarence Bunce and his team in general, and also specifically to the CBOs. I always like to hear Brother Ike, and certainly Ms. Radcliffe. As I've always said, you all are the connectors. You all are the conduit to where the rubber meets the road. So appreciate you for this. And many of you may already know this, but I was on a meeting just today. Well, I actually was yesterday, and it speaks to some of the things that some of the groups that were specified in Trace mentioned during his presentation. And that is that the Office of the Secretary or the U.S. Department of Agriculture has announced the establishment of an equity commission. And what's more, the announcement that I have, and like I said, some of you probably already are aware of this, the deadline was October 27th for nominating someone to this commission, but that has been extended to November 30th. And part of the reasons for that is because some of the nominations, as I understand it, that were coming in, were missing some of the documents And so they felt like they needed to extend it in order to get a reputable pool of applicants in the on this commission. So I won't delve into what's all in the commission. I just want you to know that the deadline has been extended. So there's still time to make nominations to this committee. And I just referenced one person that that is kind of leading the charge on this. And we've heard him before. He was on the joint conference, and that is Dr. Dwayne Goldman. But he expressly asked us to make sure that we make the constituency that we serve and come in contact aware that the deadline has been extended in order to have nomination to this committee. So thank you very much, Angela, and I appreciate you, and keep up the great work. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. So Trace, we also had a comment. I'm trying to get back to it if I can. From Ms. Patty Walker. She says she's presently working with you in York, Texas, and you've been very helpful. So we just not only thank you for being here tonight and sharing your expertise with us, but also thank you for serving the landowners in the state of Texas. And we appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank y'all for having me.
Okay. Are there any other questions of Mr. Trace Wolf before he departs? And let's see. James Adams, our farm is 135 years old. To our knowledge, we've never been able to secure any government funding. Would we be considered new farmers?
That is a great question. And let me pull out my definition again, because with those HU areas, whenever you sign the EQIP application form, it's a self-certification form. So you'll have the definitions below you. And again, I'm still flipping to the definitions of it, but essentially what will happen is if you think you meet the criteria for that HU or historically underserved farmer or rancher, go ahead and mark yourself down. And what will happen is when we get into our audit process, or if there's a review or anything on the contract like that, they will review that. And if it comes back that you don't meet the criteria for it, they can ask for 10% of the money that was obligated to you and any practices that you completed in the contract. So again, it's a self-certification form. I would just go ahead, if you feel like you meet the criteria for it, go ahead and mark it down. But again, let me pull that actual definition up for you. So the actual definition for a beginning farmer and rancher is someone who has not operated a farm or ranch for more than 10 consecutive years. So I would say, Mr. Adams, you yourself, how long have you been operating that farm? If it's been more than 10 years, I would say you probably don't meet the criteria for it. But if it's been less than that, then yes, sir, I would say you do.
Okay.
Hopefully that answers this question.
All right. Great job, Trace.
Thank you.
So thanks again for your presentation. At this time, we reached a point in the program where we're going to take a brief break. So the time now is 6:48, and we're going to break for 5 minutes to allow each of us to stretch our legs and do whatever else we might need to do. And if you will report back here by 6:53. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everyone. If we're talking about baseball and then this time of the year, World Series, I would say we're rounding third base right about now, getting ready to go to the home plate. At this time, we're excited to introduce Mr. Buster Robinson, who is the district forester with Texas Forest Service, and he's going to be speaking with us this evening about forest management. Welcome, Mr. Robinson.
Thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick here. And can everyone see that? Okay, good. All right, so yeah, I'm Buster Robinson. I'm the district forester here in Palestine. My primary counties that I serve are Anderson, Freestone, Limestone, and Navarro counties. I do some, a lot of work with Trace, who's also located here in Palestine, that we just heard from. In fact, we, met this morning and worked together quite a bit. So, but just wanted to talk a little bit about what the Texas Forest Service does and can do for landowners. So if y'all ever are in need of our assistance, we'd be happy to help. So a little bit of history. We've been around for a long time, created in 1915, recently had our 100th anniversary. And so we're still going strong. We are sheltered under the A&M University system as a component of the system. Forestry agencies across the country tend to be set up one of two ways. Either they're a state agency directly under the governor's purview, or they're set up under the land grant university, and we happen to fall under the latter. So our headquarters is in College Station at the A&M campus, or close by. We're actually moved to a new building south of College Station. And we have more than 500 employees across the state. Pretty small agency, honestly, for everything that we do, and I'll get into more of that later. And our mandate is to assume the direction of all forest interests and matters pertaining to forestry within the jurisdiction of the state. And that's pretty broad when we get into what we do. Here's our mission statement: to provide statewide leadership to assure that the state's forest, trees, and related natural resources are wisely used, nurtured, protected, and perpetuated for the benefit of all Texans. So here's our locations across the state. You can see we're heavily clustered in East Texas because, well, that's where traditionally our forests are. But we've started expanding a lot into West Texas, covering broad swaths of the state for fire response and some ranch management assistance that we do in those areas. But primarily our bread and butter personnel are still located in East Texas. Again, we've started putting a presence in a lot of urban communities as well. So this is kind of a dated slide, so take it for what it's worth. These numbers will have changed quite a bit, but forestry is an important economic engine for our state, important part of the agricultural commodities in our state. And there are over 12 million acres of commercial timberland in East Texas. And the thing about Texas, it's a private land state. And so, 94% of forest land. And I think if you spread that out across all land in the state, it jumps up to something like 98% is privately owned. So there's very little state or federal land in the state of Texas. Most of it is in private hands. And that is our purview under the state. They're able to help private landowners, and same thing for fire response and things like that. That's all under our purview. Whereas, the guys with the U.S. Forest Service or something like that, they're primarily going to be interested in federal land, and that's where they have to stay. So it's important economic sector. Employs 66,000 people. I'm sure that's probably gone up in recent years with a higher payroll as well, and big economic sector industry output for a lot of big part of the state's economy. So how much forest land is there? Roughly 62 million acres. And 468,000 separate family forest owners. That's probably a little conservative, honestly, if we break it down a little further with the what we see as far as the division of property that seems to happen with every generation. So there's those tracts, those parcels are getting smaller and smaller, and we're dealing with more and more landowners, and really the challenges are increasing with that too, because it's a whole lot easier to get things done on a large piece of property than it is a small one. But we're trying to come up with some good ways to answer those challenges. Again, more data about the economic impact of forestry that you can read again, but it's, you know, somewhat dated. We have some figures there from 2017, 2015. These figures are most likely higher at this point, especially the dollar figures. Here's kind of a breakdown of it. This is public 8%, which doesn't match the first slide I told you about. That should be 6%, but somewhere in that range, 6 to 8%. TIMO and REIT, those are timber investment management organizations and real estate investment trusts. And those are kind of these big consortium landowners that buy up large tracts of usually former industry land and are in that for investment purposes. Forest industry used to be a lot more of it. Now it's down to below 2%. And then the rest of it, family forest owners, 67% owned theirs. By far, the family forest is the largest forest landowner in Texas. So what can TFS do for the landowner? So our favorite job, my favorite part of the job, just like Trace was saying a minute ago, is going out and meeting with and assisting landowners. It's the best part of my job by far. I get to go out and meet with people on a piece of property that you know, they're proud of, and maybe I wouldn't otherwise be able to see. And we get to talk about how are we going to make this better? What can we do? What's our plan moving forward? And so we can help with all that. So on-site evaluation is one of the greatest things we do. We'll help you to kind of determine the productivity of the site, what the site is, what's growing currently, what does it currently look like, where do we want to see it in the future, and how do we get there? So I've been editing this as I go along, but I missed this slide. Seedlings available from a TFS nursery. This is kind of, again, a dated concept. We do still have a TFS nursery. It's up in Lubbock. So those are not the typical forest trees that we used to produce in Alto. That nursery was closed about 10 years ago and has since become part of the Indian Mountain State Park down there. But we do still have the nursery in Lubbock. Primarily the trees that we produce out there are going to be used for windbreaks and things in the panhandle. Although we will ship them statewide if you have a need for anything that we do produce out of the Lubbock nursery, but we can plug you into private forestry nurseries here in East Texas. Probably the biggest player is going to be the Arborgen nursery located around Bullard, especially for our area. And then there's also the International Forest Company in DeRidder, Louisiana. And those are two commercial forest nurseries that produce a lot of trees every year. So if you're doing forest plantings, that's typically where you're going to get your trees, from one of those two sources. We can help you get in touch with vendors and service providers. And this is a really handy website right here, the Texas Forest Info. It's long, but anyway, the name of it is My Land Management Connector. And it is a website that has a couple of different methods of either being able to give you just a list of contractors and you can start working the phones, or you can actually put some details about your property in there and hopefully get a contact from a vendor for the services that you're looking to have provided. And then you can kind of, put yourself out there for bids, so to speak. So, and then we can help you navigate a lot of the cost share programs that are out there. So the days of TFS directly administering cost share programs, we used to have a few. We still have some very limited ones, but most of those have gone by the wayside. The big player on the block now is of course the EQIP program. And we are the technical service provider working with NRCS to help forest owners navigate that program. So Stewardship plans are a big thing, a big part of what we do. So a stewardship plan is a comprehensive forest management plan that is a great place to start. If you are wondering about how to manage your property and you just don't know where to begin, give us a call and let's talk about either a management plan or a stewardship plan, depending on what your needs are. This is a great document that meets all of the criteria for federal programs, for American Tree Farm System, for a lot of county appraisal districts really like these things as far as seeing that you have a written management plan in place and that you have a strategy moving forward. And so this makes getting a timber exemption on your property taxes a lot easier. It's basically just it's a great blueprint that kind of gives you a comprehensive look at your forest resource and how to move forward according to your specific goals. We do these typically on a 10-year outlook, although we have been known to write them for a longer period of time. Or even a shorter period of time if there's just an awful lot going to happen in the next, let's say, 5 or 6 years. And each plan is, again, customized to your goals and accomplishments. These are some of the kind of, we kind of call them accolade programs, or at least we used to, Certified Forest Steward and the American Tree Farm System. These are two kind of next level programs. If you want to get into the tree farm program or the or a certified forest steward, these are kind of recognition programs that say, yes, you have a comprehensive management plan on your property and you are executing to a certain level. And so that's really a way of recognizing forest landowners that are really doing the right thing. Where these things may become important in the future. So Texas is a very non-regulatory state, obviously, and we like to do things on a very voluntary basis. But a lot of states are moving, particularly with the tree farm system, are moving to this program being their wood certification program. So that would be helpful for any landowner that ends up harvesting timber on their property. It's going to open up markets to them that otherwise would not be available, because these markets are going to be, they're going to require something that is, let's say, sustainable forestry certified and things of that nature. So if it comes from a certified tree farm, they can say it came from tree farm number such and such belonging to this, it's chain of custody thing. And so, if you want your lumber to end up in Home Depot or Lowe's or one of the retailers that requires SFI certified wood, and this is a vehicle to get there, is having your property under one of these certification programs. The Forest Legacy Program is an interesting one, and as we talk about properties with a lot of heirs and things, this is one that kind of might pique some people's interest. Forest Legacy is where we can help you get into conservation easements and things of that nature on your property, which helps keep the property together as through changes of ownership and that nature. It can't be basically divested, sold off piece by piece. So if there is a real important piece of property that we want to see protected in perpetuity, then it can go into the Forest Legacy Program. We've had a couple of large hunting clubs and things of that nature go under these. Typically large tracts that used to be industry owned. Now they've changed hands many times, but they're under this Forest Legacy Program. So what we aren't going to see is a real estate developer buying one and turning it into subdivisions, something like that. It's to prevent that kind of thing. The Safe Harbor Program basically protects you or gives you a baseline score for if you have any kind of federally endangered species on your property. And so it basically gets you to a point and kind of outlines what your management options are if you do end up having, say, an endangered animal move onto your property, and you didn't want it to just be locked up, completely, and you not be able to do anything with it. The Safe Harbor program kind of puts you into a mindset of being able to manage around an endangered species that might be there. There's certain things that the Federal Endangered Species Act is going to require of you, but the Safe Harbor program kind of lends you a little bit more flexibility through that. We can help with wildlife management guidelines, and we can definitely put you in touch with your parks and wildlife biologist. I've gone out and done kind of co-visits with our local biologists, and so sometimes if you're really doing a two-pronged approach with forestry and a lot of wildlife interest and stuff like that, then we can help you navigate that path as well. Timber theft investigation, we do have a law enforcement division. And so timber theft and arson are basically the two crimes that they investigate. So if there's ever a call for that, then that's something you can contact us for as well. Maps and aerial photographs, those are included with any forest stewardship plan, but sometimes that you don't need the whole kit and caboodle of a forest stewardship plan, and you might just want a few updated maps or things like that, and we can help you get those as well. County Forest Landowners Associations. If anybody is not a member of the County Forest Landowners Association and you have the ability to be, I highly recommend it. So we have one of the most active forest landowner associations in our area, be that in the Trinity Natchez Forest Landowners Association. That serves, let me see, I can get it right because we've expanded a lot. It's going to be Anderson, Freestone, Leon, Cherokee, Henderson, Houston, and I think that's it. Although we're going to have certain landowners from surrounding counties as well. I think we have a few from Navarro and things of that nature. These are landowners associations, so everybody in there is an owner of forest land in that area, and so we have biannual meetings and a newsletter that goes out quarterly, and it's a really good resource especially for going to the meetings, because you get to mix with folks that are forest landowners in your same area. Say you have a timber harvest planned, or you're looking for a vendor to get something done, you can talk to folks that own land right down the road, and maybe they've had an excellent experience, or maybe they're going to tell you to steer clear of a certain guy. It's a great kind of networking opportunity. So those are really a good thing to get involved with. So when we start talking about timber stand improvement, a lot of this, a lot of these practices can be done through the EQIP program as well, and a lot of this will be included in your forest stewardship plan if it's required. So let's say there are areas with a high yaupon component, and stand is just not accessible, and we may recommend let's get you on a mulching or get some mulching done here, or let's start you on a prescribed burning regimen, or set you up with a herbicide vendor or something like that. Again, I'm going to point back to the My Land Management Connector app, because that's where you're going to find all the people to get this stuff actually done for you. But if you want to make the first phone call to us, we can definitely help you get down the right path. Pest control, we spend a lot of time with this too. So we'll go out and hang these. You see that kind of purple box looking thing. That's an emerald ash borer trap. So I don't know if y'all have heard about the emerald ash borer. It has moved into Texas. It's in, I believe, 4 or 5 counties now, confirmed. And so we hang these traps up all over the state and kind of monitor for it every spring when the beetles are flying. We can help folks out in the hill country set up contracts to manage their oak wilt problem. Luckily, oak wilt, aside from Limestone County, hasn't really found its way into East Texas. And I mentioned Limestone County because that's part of my East Texas district, but it's really kind of out in the post oak savanna. So oak wilt isn't a huge problem for us east of, let's say, I-45. But it is something that we have to keep in front of mind in case it ever does show up here. Southern pine beetle, we're constantly trapping for that as well. Luckily, we have not had a severe outbreak of southern pine beetle in quite a few years, decades, in fact. But we have not only our field foresters in our local offices, but we also have a dedicated pest management staff in Lufkin. Oops. Oh, and then that's right. I added down at the bottom town ant control. So that's kind of a new thing too, because the available materials for controlling Texas leaf cutting ants have come and gone from the market over the years. We used to have good baits for that were easy for the landowner to apply and things of that nature. All those materials have gone off the market. And so now it's a very labor intensive thing with kind of specialized equipment required. So if there's a vendor that is not equipped to do it, some of these vendors or some of the landowners have started reaching out to us, and we can actually come out and execute town ant control in an area where, say, you're going to plant pine seedlings, and that'll keep you from getting all your pine seedlings stripped from leaf cutting ants. They can be a severe pest for newly reforested tracts. We have folks that specialize in water quality and best management practices. So these are the folks that are really looking at it and specialize in soil erosion prevention. And some of that involves meeting with and certifying logging jobs, inspecting logging jobs as they're being done and after they've been done, to make sure that they meet all the BMP compliance. Economic development, we have folks that kind of monitor the state of the forest industry in Texas and will produce periodic reports. One of the things available on our website that can be handy is the timber price trends. So if you're thinking about selling timber, you can look at that, and it's published quarterly. The drawback is the timber market moves fast, and the timber price trends are published quarterly. So you're probably going to be about at least a month behind on looking at what the average price per ton or per 1,000 board feet was the last in the last little bit. So the best source of current timber price knowledge is definitely going to be through a private consulting forester. And we always recommend that if you're taking the step of selling timber or something like that, that working with a private consultant is a good way to go. Definitely protects you on through that process because they're kind of your advocate there. Assistance through technology. In addition to the My Land Management Connector, there are a lot of other apps that we've put together on this texasforestinfo.com. I would encourage everybody to write that website down. And there is a lot of cool self-service stuff that you can do there. There are tools for looking at your soils. There are tools for the water quality and BMP things. There's a My Tree ID app that you can download for your cell phone if you're curious about what something is. All kinds of different things that we've got up there. And then if you are having trouble using any of it, or just say, it's sometimes like drinking from a fire hose, something like that, and you just want a simple question, obviously don't hesitate to pick up the phone, and we'll do it the other way too. So Map My Property is a real popular one that a lot of folks like, and that's where you can just kind of make your own maps. It's very intuitive. But if you want something more in depth, I can definitely produce that for you as well from the office. Forest inventory analysis. This is a program that basically these guys go out and do permanent plots all over the state where they measure the forest. And then they're going to go back on a 5-year basis and remeasure the forest in that plot. And so this gives us data as far, not only as to what the forest composition and growth is, but it also gives us data as to deforestation, land conversion, urbanization, those sorts of things all come out of this program. So it gives us a really nice kind of running picture of what our natural resources and other things look like. So yeah, other things that come out of that would be for our wildfire fuels, things of that nature that we use for predicting wildfires and predictive services, what we call for saying, given our weather conditions, what is a fire going to do in this area, and identifying severe zones of severe need as far as fire control and that sort of thing. Conservation education is a fun thing that we do. So we have people who are trained as project learning tree facilitators. This is basically an environmental education initiative that is taught in a K through 12 environment. Every year I bring all of Anderson County schools in for a forest awareness tour, which is basically a day out in the field where we kind of run them through the forest and show them all kinds of different things and hopefully, spur some interest and good questions and that sort of thing. We also have 5 state forests. The closest one to us here is the Fairchild State Forest in Cherokee County. And we do all kinds of things there to help kind of demonstrate what is possible in a forest environment. We have services in urban areas. So we're not just in the boonies, but also in the urban areas. Urban forestry partnership grants. We have folks that are urban foresters that work with municipalities and nonprofit groups and that sort of thing to help cities kind of manage their urban forest canopy. They also maintain the Texas Big Tree Registry. But if something pops up in my district that somebody says, I think this is the biggest whatever species in the state, then I'm going to be the one that goes out and measures that and we'll get it submitted for consideration to the Texas Big Tree Registry. Tree selection, proper planting techniques, pruning, etc. So we do a lot of Arbor Day programs and things like that. This isn't limited to urban areas. It can, we also do a lot of it in East Texas and smaller towns and for school groups and that sort of thing. Wildfire prevention is a big important part of what we do. So we do have a predictive services division that basically look at, we have an incident meteorologist. We have guys that are fire behavior analysts who are kind of constantly looking at the fire and the weather and fuels data. And they're trying to keep us abreast of what we can expect for fire conditions based on, drought indices and things of that nature. So this gives us a good picture that we can then turn around and we can educate our local counties with this. And this is where burn bans come from, basically, is if a county judge is thinking about putting in a burn ban, he may call us and say, what are the numbers? A lot of times they ask us, should we put on a burn ban? And we say, we will not, directly recommend doing a burn ban, but these are the numbers. This is what we can expect from fire behavior. This is what we can expect for new fire starts, that sort of thing. And then we also have folks that do public information and a lot of news releases and whatnot to try and keep the public aware of what's going on there. And then finally, wildfire suppression is what we've been doing a lot of today with the wind blowing the way it is. My guys are all out right now. Actually, we're probably going to be working until about 10 o'clock tonight. But the way the wind has been blowing today, a lot of power lines down, a lot of fires getting started. And so this is just kind of one of those things that whenever that happens, we just kind of drop everything else and go do that. But definitely not the everything that we do. To get in touch with us, we can you can go to our website and identify the office that serves your county. We can obviously, you can look at the map that's here. That's my district there in kind of the darkish blue in the middle there, Anderson, Freestone, Limestone, Navarro. Those are my counterparts around me and the districts that they serve. And so this is what we consider the East Texas zone. And so the district structure in East Texas is a little bit different than it's going to be in the rest of the state. A lot more full service. We are absolutely total program in East Texas. So anything that you need, call us directly at the office. You can deal with, me or one of my staff every time you call for whatever issue that you need. We can get you handled, or we can get you set up with the specialist who would need to handle that. I like to put this kind of helpful resources at the end. So we've talked a little bit about EQIP and some of the other Farm Bill programs tonight. And so I like to kind of revisit that because that's always top of folks' mind if they've got any projects that they're planning or something like that. Why not get cost shares if we can, right? So the NRCS website, the FSA website. I don't want to open a Pandora's box here, but there are carbon credit programs out there as well. These are kind of new to the scene, but if you have forest land that is, and particularly pine plantation, that is coming due for a thinning at some point in the future or a harvest, I would suggest you go to that ncx.com/landowners. It's really kind of easy to get information about this thing. That's a carbon credit program. So basically you can sign up for a what they call deferment contract. So if you're due to harvest next year and you agree to wait a year, then they would pay you a certain number of, a certain sum per acre to kind of just basically defer harvesting for 1 year, which you may be waiting on the timber market anyway. So it's kind of one of those things where, you can look at, definitely worth looking into if you're in that position, but it's not going to work out for everybody. Parks and Wildlife does have a few incentive programs on the wildlife side, and especially for like there's programs for upland birds and things. If you have some pastures that you wanted to convert to that, and some programs that can really lend you a lot of tools and expertise and things to get projects done. So it's kind of a neat way to go about it too. Obviously, all of our websites. That's our main, texasforestservice.tamu.edu, and then that fun self-service kind of website with all those apps and tools that we have available at texasforestinfo.tamu.edu. Trinity Nature's Forest Landowners Association, if you are in one of those 5 or 6 or 7 counties that I mentioned, tnfla.org is their website, and really great organization there. And then obviously the Texas Forestry Association, who we're about to hear from, recommend that every Texas forest landowner be a member of TFA for sure. And with that, that's about all I have to talk about. What is available through us and what we can do for you. And I'll look for questions here, I guess. Okay, so I don't see any questions in chat unless somebody's put something in there that I can't see. Do I have any questions?
Okay. I don't
Thank
see.
y'all for having me.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I think one of your officers came out and looked at some of my property, and they said that it would be better to wait 5 years before I harvest the trees. Then I talked to a consultant, and they said that they would go ahead on the cut, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah, you're a little broken up, but I thought you said that that one of our folks had recommended waiting to thin, and then you said a consultant said that they would come down in price if you waited. Is that correct?
No, they said that they would go ahead and cut it.
That they would go ahead and cut it?
Cut it, yes. So I don't know whether I should wait or just go ahead on.
Yeah. So that's really kind of up to you and up to the market. So if you have trees that are due to cut, and again, this is where we do recommend going through private consulting foresters. Now, it might be a different story if you have a logger knocking on your door, because those guys are going to want to cut anything, maybe, depending on how reputable they are. But working through a consulting forester who you hire to basically execute your project, a professional consulting forester, not a logger who is buying for his own interests, basically. We like to recommend working with a private forestry consultant so that they can kind of be your advocate in a timber sale and help you navigate that market, because yeah, it has been changing fast in the last several years. Market's been a real roller coaster, and so taking advantage of good timber prices as they're available to the landowner is really a matter of timing. So if you have a reputable forestry consultant who is recommending you go ahead and cut, that's a discussion to have with them, but I couldn't fault them for that.
Okay, what do you do when you want to replant your tree? Where is it the cost? So is there any programs to help with the price of replanting?
Yes, to reforest or to plant trees.
Yes.
Yes, that can be done under the EQIP program, and that's probably one of the biggest things that we do for the EQIP program is we help with the reforestation plans. And so that can also, we've also had vendors produce a reforestation plan, and we actually just had the discussion this morning. If somebody's working with a consulting forester and the consultant writes a plan, basically it just has to meet all the criteria that NRCS needs for a comprehensive management plan as well. So like if we do one for you, it's probably going to come in the form of a forest stewardship plan with the reforestation prescription, in the middle of it. So that's one of those things. In order to get into EQIP, you're going to have certain criteria in your plan, and so it's going to have to kind of be a comprehensive management plan. But we can produce that for you for sure.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you very much for those questions. And thank you also, Buster Robinson. We appreciate the very thorough presentation, and we're sure that some of the landowners are going to be calling on you soon.
There was one question in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I see the question. Does forestry management include managing or propagating natural trees such as mayhaw, or would that be on the NRCS side? So yeah, so for propagating or for planting, mayhaw, you would probably find in a, if you could find it from a nursery, it would of course be on the hardwood side, and it would probably be in a wildlife bundle, what they call a wildlife bundle, and that you would by those trees. And of course, the planting guidance for pine is going to be different from hardwood, and for fruit production is going to be different than for timber production. So if you wanted to do something like that, we can help you get on the right path. I'll tell you, for doing something like an orchard or something like that, I've got a little bit of experience, but I am definitely no expert when it comes to orchards and fruit tree management, nut tree management, that sort of thing. But I can put you in touch with the right folks that may be able to help you a little bit more than me. So if you'd like to give me a call, we can definitely discuss it, and we'll put you on the right path.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you. You do the same. So next we have Ms. Susan Stutz, who's Senior Director of Texas Forestry Association, who's going to be speaking with us about timber harvesting. Susan.
Okay. Hello, thank you for having me. Let me share my screen really quick. And here we go. Do y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, as Angela said, it's not doing, there we go. I'm Senior Director for Texas Forestry Association. I'll tell you a little bit about who we are before we get into the timber harvesting. Basically, we are an association this is kind of what our goal is. If you have a clean, healthy, and productive forest, or you want a clean, healthy, and productive forest, then you certainly need to be a member of Texas Forestry Association. We are a conservation organization. We've been around since 1914. We were actually created in 1914 by a group of people who decided Texas needed some forest management. In 1915, they lobbied the Texas legislature and created the Texas A&M Forest Service, which Buster is a part of that state agency. And we've been around for 107 years now. Today, we work for people who grow, manage, harvest, process, and use the forest resources of Texas. The people who grow are people like yourselves who own forest land. Manage would be foresters, harvest would be our logging contractors, processing mills, and then of course everyone every day uses some type of forest resource. We have about 3,000 members of forest landowners, professional foresters, harvest contractors, consuming mills, service providers. A lot of the Texas A&M Forest Service personnel are members of ours as well. We're very involved in the economic climate in Texas for forestry. We assist economic development corporations when a new business comes to town or wants to come to town or wants to come to Texas. One of the first places they go is the governor's office and the local economic development office, and we assist them with any questions that the companies have about starting a company here in Texas. What is the workforce? What is the logging force? What are the availability of seedlings and things such as that? We work with councils of governments. We promote forest products. We collaborate with the Texas Department of Agriculture almost year round. And we assist in preserving the forest productivity tax laws of Texas. We watch any type of legislation that might come out that is trying to get passed that would prohibit the forest productivity tax laws that we have right now. And then we're always trying to improve them as well. On a social climate, we produce a bi-monthly magazine. We have a lot of good articles in there. The one on the cover of this one is thinning for forest landowners. It's a really good article written by a professional forester on thinning, when to do it, how to do it, and what it does to make the rest of your trees grow even better once you've thinned. We do emails to our membership, what's current events, what's going on. We promote a lot of webinars and a lot of events, not just our own, but those that other partners have. We do social media, and we host and sponsor meetings and workshops. Now, the last couple of years, most of our meetings and workshops have been virtual, and that's been a really great platform for us, just like it is for you all. Thank goodness we're able to do this. We did host after two years. Last week we hosted one of our annual conventions, and we ended up having about 375 people there, and we were surprised, pleasantly surprised. Some of the people on this phone call were there, and they set up a tabletop booth, and I hope they got a lot out of it. Politically, this is one of our members. He owns a mill down in Orange on the left, and this is the Speaker of the House in Texas. Politically, we lobby in Austin and Washington, D.C. My boss is the Executive Director of Texas Forestry Association. One of his primary duties is lobbying on behalf of forest landowners. We offer legislative alerts, particularly during when the Texas legislature is in session. We support private property rights. We have a political action committee that's very important in any type of industry. It's very important, and especially for forestry. We solicit donations from our membership every year so that we are able to provide campaign contributions to candidates who are pro-forestry and who we consider friends of forestry. We've already said that. When we also support timber theft laws and anti-vandalism laws, we have a program that that we actually offer money for any timber theft or vandalism on a member's property, whether it's their forest or their equipment or whatever. Again, in the political arena in 2019, we passed the Forestry Tax Fairness Act. That was really big for forest landowners in that, I'll say about it. When part of your land is taken out for an easement, then you lose growing timber on that little piece of land. And even though you probably get paid by the easement company, my internet connection says it's unstable. Somebody wave at me if something happens to it. So what the Forestry Tax Fairness Act says is we had some local tax authorities who wanted to put your land, let's just say you had 5 acres taken out for a easement. Well, they wanted to say, okay, that's no longer in timber, so you've got to pay the full tax rate for that 5 acres. Well, it is no longer in timber, but there's not anything you can do with it either. So we got that law passed in 2019 to where if your land is taken out for certain easements, and then you can still get a timber exemption on it, even though it's not planted. We also had a log loader bill that was really big for logging contractors that year. This year in the Texas legislature, we had a bill that that our local legislators carried, the prescribed burning liability bill. That was really big. We have a prescribed burn council that's part of our association, and this helped with their liability and their liability insurance. Eminent domain reform. That eminent domain is on the Texas legislature every single session, and it's always been a pretty tough nut to crack. This year we made a little bit of headway in that we got some other partners in other sectors on board, and we had a little bit of legislation passed to strengthen our eminent domain laws. And then tort reform for truck drivers, for trucking insurance. That was a big bill that we had helped a lot of people, trucking industry all across the state. We got some legislation passed that would help with their tort reform and hopefully eventually reduce their insurance rates. It's hard to get truck drivers right now. So this is some of our representatives, of course, again, the Speaker of the House, and This is my boss. He is in James White, Representative James White's office. We also are made up with several committees and councils. We have a Wood Preservers Council. This is a group of people throughout the state that provide treated wood, like treated poles. What we do for them is we offer a platform for their continuing education. So twice a year, we bring in people to come in to give them their required continuing education. The Burn Managers Council that I mentioned, those are professional burners. And we also twice a year, once or twice a year, we provide a platform for them to come in and get their continuing education credits. We also have people on that council, members of the Texas Forestry Association, who are on the state burn board through the Texas Department of Agriculture. And then we have our Texas Accredited Foresters Council, which is consulting foresters, is what I'll be talking about a lot in just a few minutes. This is just a group that we keep records on that have forestry degrees. When you're looking for a consulting forester, you want to be sure that you get a professional forester, whether it's the Texas A&M, the state forestry agencies, or consultants. So this is a group of people. We keep an up-to-date list on our website, and they have to go through continuing education just like everybody else does. So we have a logging council. Dave Duren's our logging council coordinator. He does a great job with the Logger magazine and working with local county judges and county commissioners and things on behalf of the loggers of East Texas. And then we have a Texas Forest Landowner Council, which I'm proud to say recently, I believe Dr. Washington probably is the one who joined our Texas Forest Landowner Council. I may have that wrong, but we have invited, invited SFLR to the table and share and partner with. We are always open and we are always available to do that. We do environmental education, as Buster alluded to. Texas Forestry Association and the Texas A&M Service are co-sponsors of an international program called Project Learning Tree. And the bulk of the operation comes out of our office, and we participate in that to teach teachers through Project Learning Tree and through our Teacher Conservation Institute about the forest product sector, about everything there is to know about it, so they can go back to their classrooms and hopefully they're telling their kids, hey, this is a good thing. They cut down trees, plant trees, because trees are a sustainable resource. We house the American Tree Farm System. That's a certification program. It's the sign here on the left. This is a U.S. program, certification program. You'll see the numbers over here. I won't read those off. But what this basically does is it shows that as forest landowners, you're doing a really good job on your land. You're following best management practices for water quality. You're using professional service providers. You are, you're checking to make sure you don't have any threatened or endangered species on your land, and you are making an effort to combat any invasive species and just a whole lot of other things. But this is a certification program, and we do house that out of the Texas Forestry Association for the state of Texas. Buster is one of our wonderful inspectors. We have about 75 inspectors across East Texas, and the Texas Forest Service really helps with that, as do our consulting foresters and several of our industry foresters. If you're interested in that, as my kids used to say, we can hook you up. We also house the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. This is another certification program. You might see envelopes or lumber or paper that has this logo on it, Sustainable Forestry Initiative. This is a North American program. Unlike tree farm certification, that's just in the United States. The Sustainable Forestry Initiative is in the United States and Canada. It is a much larger certification program. Tree Farm is for family forest owners like yourselves. Sustainable Forestry Initiative goes beyond that and certifies a lot of industrial type lands. The mills, the local mills get certified. And at the state level, we house this program. I work very closely with what we call our SFI committee in Texas. What we do through our SFI committee is landowner outreach and education. That's very important. It's in the standard. We do a lot of landowner outreach and education. We do the logger training and education. We have the platform and host all of the logger training. As Buster said, they provide logger training and BMPs for water quality. They come with us into our program, and that's the portion that professionals at the Forest Service teach, is the best management practices for water quality. There's a lot of other components to our logger training, but all of the mills require loggers to go through a certain amount of training. By that, we have a database on our website. Once a logger does the training and keeps up with his continuing education, he's considered a Texas Pro Logger, and we do have that database on our website, and that's open to the public. We always have challenges, just like everybody else. At the federal level, migrant labor regulation was a big deal this last year. Getting H-2B workers, they come in and they get visas to come in, and they're basically the most of the planning crews. And there was some stuff going on in at the federal level that maybe they didn't, that maybe they didn't need to come in, but we have to get our land planted, and we have about 83 million trees that are planted in East Texas every year. That's a challenge. Using drones. Drones are great in law enforcement. They're great in forestry and agriculture. I've got a couple of pictures a little bit later on, but there's an issue there. There is an issue, and that's kind of an ongoing thing. Environmental, social governance. Y'all probably have heard a lot about that lately. Climate change mitigation, threatened and endangered species. Whenever, and we'll talk about it, whenever a species comes out, well, how does that affect the landowner? We're all concerned about the threatened and endangered species, but what does that do to the landowner? And is that going to prohibit any type of management on their land? And then, of course, as Buster mentioned, carbon offset regulations. That's going great guns here right now. We're not a proponent of any certain company that offers carbon offsets. But we do put information out. That's basically what we do. Timber harvesting, which is really what you wanted to talk about. Like Buster said, when you get ready to harvest timber, you really need to hire a consulting forester. The one on the left here is the forester. The one on the right is a logger. A forester is trained in forestry. Forestry is an art and science. They get a Bachelor of Science. That's the minimum that they get. Especially like someone in your area, they're going to know the area. They're going to look at your land. They're going to know which mills will take the timber, when it's best to harvest, when it's best to hold it. What else is going on out there. We highly recommend that you hire a forester. There's at least 4 times when you need a forester. When you're doing an initial assessment and valuation of your woods. You bought your land, okay, now what? So go to the Texas A&M Forest Service or find another forester and ask them to come out and look, and they will walk your property and look at it. You can have your soil tested. You can have, Texas Parks and Wildlife come out and look to see if you have any threatened and endangered species, and they will help you, tell you what you've got, and they will help you do with it what you want and what's best for your land. When you plant trees, you need to have a forester because they know, they know where to get the seedlings, they know where to get the planters, they know the time of year. There's only a certain little small window in the year that you can get trees planted. When you thin your trees, you need a forester. You don't want to go out and just hire a logger and say, okay, I want my trees thin. You don't know what you're going to get. You need to have someone who goes out and says, these are the trees. They base them on, they either mark them, which they don't do a whole lot anymore, but they'll base them on a diameter and they'll say, okay, you want everything, 6 inches and less cut. That's what you need to have to thin your timber. And then when you harvest trees, which is thinning part of it, there's different times when you harvest trees. There is proof that you will get a greater return on a timber harvest if you use a consulting forester. The reason is they help you with the contract. They know that you need to put what you need to put in your contracts. They know like I said, the loggers, they know the mills. During a timber harvest, they go out there, they get weekly spreadsheets and tickets showing where that timber went and what the weight was. They get copies of those tickets. So they know that where your timber is and where it's going. This is, I know you can't read this, but this is one of several information resources that we have on our website. This one is Start with a Plan. And it's like Buster said, they can help with the plan. Almost all foresters can help you with the plan. Before you decide to cut your timber, you should always have a plan to replant. So even though you're ready to cut your timber, okay, you need to know once it's cut, okay, what are we going to do next and when are we going to do that? You need to have that planned out. And that's why we always say, start with a management plan. There's a lot of different management plans out there and a lot of different things that can be put into a management plan. If you're getting any type of federal government funding, such as EQIP, through the NRCS, you've got to have a management plan. If you want tree farm certification and recognition, you've got to have a forest management plan. Different people write different plans, but if you tell your forester, I'm applying I want cost share funds, your forester will help you. I want to be a certified tree farmer. They'll know what needs to go in that plan to meet all that criteria. Timber harvesting, go by word of mouth. Your forester, like I said, he's going to know the loggers. He's going to have, a lot of these consultants have just certain loggers that they work with. Mills, however, if they buy your timber directly, which, a lot of them do, they have their own loggers that they'll have come out and log the property. Check their qualifications. Have they been trained? Are they a Texas Pro logger? Check references. Always ask, loggers or consultants for references, for the loggers' references. Call up somebody and say, hey, what did they do on your land and were they easy to work with and did you get paid and everything such as that. Some amazing loggers in the state of Texas and in East Texas. So many. We just did our meeting last week. Every year we honor an outstanding logger and there's a lot of good ones out there. Insurance, liability insurance, always make sure that is in your contract and you need to see an insurance certificate. That needs to be part of it. Depending on what you're cutting, you might have a consulting forester bid out your timber. Particularly on a final harvest when it's a lot larger, he may send a bid out to several different timber buyers and mills. Prices can be negotiated. You don't always have to take the first price. And always sign a contract, have a contract, know what's in your contract, keep a copy of your contract. We have people probably 2 or 3, 4 times a year call our office and say, I didn't get paid for my timber. We'll say, okay, the first thing we say is, well, what did your contract say? Well, I didn't have a contract. Well, you have got to have a contract. That's just, in this day and age, a handshake doesn't always work anymore. So a good consulting forester will help you with the contract and he or she will draft that for you. The other thing, I want to go back just one, maybe. The one thing about foresters and really any service providers that you work with, and they'll say, what do you want out of your land? And what do you want to see happen? And they will do their darndest to give you good advice to help make that happen. If the mayhaw trees are just not going to work, the one who said, and gosh, I hope they would work almost anywhere, they'll tell you they're just probably not going to work. But always they will want to do what you want because it is your land. You're paying for it. You're paying them, but they will help you do a really good job. So this is a little bit of timber harvesting equipment. Most all of the equipment out in the woods now is what we call mechanized. They don't just go out with a chainsaw anymore and cut down a tree. It is mechanized. That helps with their insurance. It's not as dangerous. It's more efficient. They can protect ground better. They can protect water quality better. This is called a drive to tree, where they gut the tree. This is a loader. This one's a loader. These are some trees that had been harvested. Like I said, very expensive equipment. This is another loader. He's getting that log truck loaded. They make sets on your land. They don't just drive all over it. They go out there, they go out with your forester, or they go out with the landowner and they look at it. The logger does and says, okay, this would be the best place for a set. And most of the time they're hoping you'll agree with them. But if you don't, you can always let them know. It's put on a truck. It's a lot of timber is what we call merchandised, to where you may have a tract of land that you're cutting that may have a lot of uneven aged timber on it. So a forester will go out and say, okay, this timber needs to go to an OSB mill. This timber needs to go to a sawmill, and you'll get different prices. But a lot of times that's the best way. It's not always the best way, but it's a good way to cut a tract of timber. If it's all the same age, it's going to all probably go to one place. This is a drone photo of a logging set. You see how they have worked around. This is where they made their roads, and they've worked around, and doesn't look too bad. And like I said, a lot of times your timber goes to different places. These are beams that are made down in Southeast Texas. This is a lumber mill in Lufkin. This is an OSB plant in Nacogdoches. It might be made into OSB. And of course, this is a paper mill. So your wood could end up going different places. And you'll know where it goes because your forester will keep up with that. And then again, to me, this is an after timber harvest. It looks really good. We think it looks good. A lot of people driving by might not think so, but we think it looks great. And you want to have in your, I need to order some trees. You've got to order trees way ahead of time, and get those ready to go and get tree planters, and your forester will help you do that. And that is really about all I have. We are in Lufkin, the Texas Forestry Association. We have a Facebook and website and Instagram and Twitter pages. We are always there. If you have questions, if we don't know the answer at our office, we can put you in touch with somebody like Buster Robinson or different ones to answer your questions. We don't give out our member database, and we don't recommend one over another. We're not allowed to do that, but members do have access to that. You would have access to the full membership to look up members. And I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
That's all I got. Any questions? We are running out of time. That wasn't a question. I knew you were.
That's
Thank you
all
all.
right. It was very valuable information, and we're very grateful that you shared it. But I do not see any other questions, though. Susan, thank you so very much for being with us tonight and for sharing the information about timber harvesting and representing Texas Forestry Association. Please give our regards to Mr. Hughes
I
and to all your
will.
members.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm just going to take the liberty of making a few remarks. We've talked a lot tonight about various resources that are available to each of the landowners, and I just want to make it extremely clear one of the requirements to get those resources, and that is one of the requirements, the most important one, is to complete an SFLR intake form. And if you'll just bear with me, I'm going to show my screen so that you will see our website, and I put it already in the chat box, how you can access a intake form if you don't already have one. But if you need to access the intake form, you can go to our website, which is here, and you get there by doing www.pvamu.edu/SFLR, and it will bring you here. And if you'll notice, this box here says SFLR participation enrollment form, and that will take you to the intake form. And I'm taking this time to explain that to you because the SFLR intake form is so very important. It allows the landowners to get access to additional resources that they might not otherwise be able to get. One of those resources is to be able to attend a legal clinic. And we spoke about that earlier today. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But before I move on, I want to show you this intake form so that you'll see it's fairly simple, and it's just a 2-page document, primarily asking you who you are, where you live, and just some 3 questions about your land. So I don't want anybody to be intimidated by it and say, oh, I don't know if I can complete a form. Yes, please complete the form. And when you do, and I'm rushing now because I know time is of the essence. When you complete that form, you'll be able to get those resources that I'm going to tell you about. And one of them is you'll be able to attend our legal clinic. And as you can see on my screen here, our next legal clinic is coming up on Tuesday, November 16th, and it will go from 1 to 4 p.m. And you will hear from FSA again, and Mr. Joshua Coleman will talk a little bit more about the services they provide. And specifically, he'll talk about the Heirs Property Relending Program and give us an update at that time of what the status is. Following him, you'll hear from Attorney Stephen Hubbard. He gave you a precursor, if you will, to the information that he's going to share more in depth with you on November 16th. So you don't want to miss that, because in addition to talking about heirs property in general, he's going to talk about wills, how you create one. He's going to talk about estates and a whole gamut of other legal resources that would be helpful to landowners who are faced with heirship issues. So again, the way you access this, though, is by completing and returning that form to us. So that's why I felt the need to take this extra time so that you won't miss out on that opportunity. In addition to being able to attend the legal clinic, the form will also permit you to get 1 free hour of legal consultation. So that's when you can go one-on-one and speak with the attorney and tell them about your situation specifically, and be able to get your questions answered. I will say, I'm going to go out on a limb and advise you, if it were me, do your homework ahead of time. So when you go attend this legal clinic and you listen and you be able to get a sense of what to expect, when you go to him to speak one-on-one, you will have already had the opportunity to go prepared so that you're making the best use of that 1 hour time. And finally, the last thing that the SFLR intake form allows you is, I said the legal clinic, and I said the 1 hour, the free service, but it'll also give you an opportunity to have a simple will prepared. So we don't want this situation of heirs situation to continue for generations to come. So we're trying to be proactive by helping the landowners to get wills prepared so that we're not having to deal with this one generation after the other. So thank you for bearing with me. And I know we're a little bit beyond the 8 o'clock hour, but I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. Now, with that, I'd like to ask Ms. Kimberly Ratcliffe to come before us again, if she would offer any closing remarks that she
And I
has.
am going to keep them short and sweet because I know
Okay.
everyone wants to go, and Angela did an excellent job of closing it out. But I just want to let you know that the community-based organizations are here also to assist. If you need any assistance with some of the programs that they're mentioning here, if you need assistance going through NRCS, FSA, any of these organizations that you heard so much information, you always can reach out to us too. And we are a resource. And that's why we really collaborated with Prairie View. It's because we are a resource just like Prairie View. And it's a great collaboration for the community-based organizations along with Prairie View to partner together and bring you this information. And that's the purpose of it, is the partnership between Prairie View and the community-based organizations. And it's been a great partnership. So I just literally want to just say thank you guys for attending. I don't want to keep you longer. It's 8:10. So I want you guys to have a good night. And if you have any additional questions, you have Angela Moore's information, and you probably had my email or you've received some kind of contact from me to attend this workshop. So please reach out to us. So everyone have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Kim. At this time, Dr. Clarence Bunch will offer closing remarks on behalf of Prairie View A&M University.
You're muted, Dr. Bunch.
I said, wonderful job. Thanks, Angela, for the great job you just did here tonight here as well. Kim, thank you for being a great partner with Prairie View as we continue to try to do the best we can to provide and share and to assist landowners informing as well as providing whatever assistance we possibly can. So thank you. Let me thank all the speakers as well. Susan, wonderful, outstanding presentation you just gave as well. So really thank all the presenters for what they shared reference to FSA as well as NRCS, Kelly in reference to Kenneth. We thank you all for doing that. Also to Buster, outstanding forest presentation there as well. So we just, I won't be long here. So we just want to thank you all for just partnering with us as we continue to move forward. I will say that this is the last workshop in this particular session, but we're actually planning for others already in reference to what we'll be doing throughout the East Texas area. So the program has been incorporated into the operation of Ag and Natural Resources. So this is going to be just a normal process that we do as we begin to try to reach out and address this issue across the East Texas area here as well. Again, let me thank, I know that Ike was still on here, so I thank him for being a part and also just hosting on with us here tonight as well. I want to thank everybody who's been just really terrific in partnering with us as we continue to move forward. Last thing I better say is that, of course, coming soon is a part of our reckoning program, which deals with the heirs education, 6-7 session that's going to take place. We're hoping that we can provide financial incentives to help landowners with some of those things that may be engaged into in reference to calls for surveys and those sorts of things, as well as providing some financial assistance, but maybe some equipment or something we need to have as well. So that's coming here and coming soon with us as well. So again, we're moving forward, pressing forward, and doing the best we possibly can to help landowners to really address where they're at and the needs that they need, and trying to continue to be sustainable and effective. So I'm going to stop there. Angela, it is 8:14, so I appreciate everybody's attention, and we thank you for tuning in with us, and I just want to give everybody a nice blessing. Good night.
Good night. Thank you all.